Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. I am Steve Crane, and with me is Dustin Bovey right next to me and Nate Hale. Hello. Tonight, episode 135, we've got, I want to thank our sponsors briefly here. I'll throw them up on the screen for those watching live on Facebook or YouTube. We got Tinderbox at Easton. They are the ones that are providing our cigar of the night, the featured cigar, which is the Rocky Patel Decade. And are about to get to that reason why we picked the Decade tonight. And also Altadis USA, which I've got the Monte Cristo Espada, which is an all Nicaraguan one. Fantastic cigar. Looking forward to that. BS Cigar Company. And we have the gold and silver. I got a gold over here. I don't know if you guys typically have a gold or a silver, which I appreciate.
I've got a few golds in my case right here.
Fantastic. And so the other sponsor is you guys. So patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. We've had a lot of positive feedback from everyone. We've got, they're wearing the shirts. I'll hold one up.
Yeah. Steve originally planned on wearing it, and then he's like, I don't want to have all three of us wearing the shirt again.
Pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. And you got the big logo on the back. Awesome shirts. Tri-blend.
Yeah, they're super soft.
They're super soft. I really like the shirt. I'm wearing tonight a Bears shirt because I am excited about whatever the football season is about to look like for the 3 weeks we'll probably have it. And you guys, if you want to get on patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast, you can do basically $5 tier, $10 tier, $25 tier, or you can actually adjust it to basically contribute whatever you would like. We've had a couple of one-time donations, which I appreciate completely, and we appreciate all the support. But yeah, you get a T-shirt. Depending on what tier you do and the amount, you'll get a T-shirt mailed to you. I'm going to be mailing a couple out actually this Friday, and I'm really happy to do so. So we appreciate that support. That being said, we've got a special bottle tonight that we're going to be going over. What's that?
It's an extra sponsor for tonight.
It's another sponsor, yeah. So Watershed Distillery, and they were going to be on. That's why we scheduled this episode on the 9th for this bottle, and there's a reason I'm going to get into it a little bit. But we're going to try something. We had even though with our new technology, we have some videos from Greg Lehman from Watershed. Excuse me. I drank a lot of Watershed Old Fashioned last night, and I'm still feeling the effects of it. I'm going to be honest
like
right
that
now.
Pan dilemma.
Yeah. So we have video from Greg. We're going to try to get the audio on here so you guys can see it and listen to it. We'll see what happens there. So hopefully it works out for you. We have this bottle. How are you guys?
Well, there's the bottle clink.
Yeah. How are you guys?
That was louder than a cork pop.
I'm doing well. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just work's kind of consuming everything at the moment, just with everything going on, but keeping everything busy. Little one started cheer, so it's great. She's having a blast.
Good.
Kathy's getting photo stuff together and setting up some shoots for the fall. So anyone down in the Logan Hocking Hills area, keep your eyes out. She's got a shoot planned. Getting ready to plan the dates here soon, probably end of September, early mid-October. So pretty excited for that.
Good.
Nate, what about you, bud?
Not a damn thing different than every other week, pretty much.
Keeping it simple.
I feel like that's representative of basically everything going on right now.
Yeah, Monday was nice. Sunday, sat out on the back patio and just watched some TV on my tablet, smoked some cigars. Stayed up late at night, had like a National Geographic nature show going on in my backyard.
Is that an innuendo, or is it you were actually watching that?
No, like
probably both.
No, like there was a mouse, there was a cat, there was a possum. Earlier in the weekend, there was a hawk in my backyard above the bird feeder. So
nice.
Yeah, sounds like a.
Bobby Hirschman's already said, "Give Crane water." I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And then Monday, it was really nice having Monday off with the holiday.
Yeah.
Because
it wasn't.
It was. Well, sorry, Steve.
I wouldn't know.
Neither would I.
Well, someone had to work.
It's true.
Everyone but you, apparently, here.
I always find it funny. So, and don't take offense if or if you want to take offense, that's fine.
That's your own problem.
You're not
Yeah.
going to control them.
But yeah, it's like people come in on like Monday, to the cigar shop, and I don't know how many times it happened, but it was a handful of times, and they're like, "Man, you're working on the holiday, huh? That's unfortunate." I'm like, you literally just walked into a store hoping it'd be open to buy cigars.
You're shopping on a holiday.
And yeah, and it's like, yes, someone's got to be here. I think that I made the comparison actually when everything was fucking shut down. I was like, oh, you got to stay home, like, because of COVID and everything, like the whole world's ending. And then they're like, hey, honey, I'll be right back. I'm gonna run over to Walmart. And you're like, so you need to stay home, but you want to make sure that you can walk into a store like Kroger or Walmart or whatever, and there's going to be people working there. But kind of like, screw them, right? I don't know.
You're an
Hypocritical
essential
much.
employee, Steve.
Yeah, I yeah, true. All right, this bottle, I am very flattered and honored that the fine folks over at Watershed Distillery, who we had Greg and Ann during the actual shutdown. We did it remotely.
Yeah.
And they were kind enough to send us this bottle of, this is their 10th anniversary barrel strength Watershed Distillery bourbon. It is a 6-year bottle as far as the age, 6 years, it says. And it is going to be finished in apple brandy barrels. So I am excited to say the least.
Same here. It makes two of us.
And like I said, I am extremely flattered and grateful that they sent this bottle over. So
The box that it came in is amazing.
absolutely.
And,
They really went all out.
yeah, and we had to kind of keep our mouth shut about it because we've had the bottle
Jeez.
for a couple weeks, but we weren't allowed to say anything about it because they just did the press release. What, Monday? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Monday,
yeah.
or-
So it was originally supposed to be. Sorry, I'm really trying to. This technology thing tonight is working real well. So hopefully your guys' feed, besides me tripping over my words, trying to figure out the laptop here. Yeah. So the press release was supposed to be on the 8th, and so that's why we scheduled this for the 9th. They were having a hard time, I think, keeping it quiet, so they pushed it up to August 31st. The press release on all this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I mean, I can understand why. I mean, it's a huge milestone for them, and being a real key local distillery here in Columbus, Ohio.
I'm sitting there wondering, like, who is leaking it? Like, because it's an internal thing. So
I don't think it's a leak necessarily. It's just they had sent one out to me. They sent it out to a couple other, or a handful. I don't know how many, but I know that like Dino over at Whiskey Business,
Yeah.
He had a bottle. Scott GK, who's been on the show before, he had a bottle for the Ohio Bourbon Times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just think that once they sent it out, I think they thought maybe it would be too much pressure to like keep it out from getting out just through conversation or what have you. I think is probably what it was. I have no idea.
We seem to manage doing just fine without letting it go. At least
Probably.
I know I did. So
Yeah.
the hell are you guys doing that you had to?
And regardless, this will be released on the. You can do a cork pop. Nice.
Oh,
All right, so this will be released on the 19th, and it's going to be released at their. So there's a list, and I'll post that list that on the podcast page, on the community page. But it's on the 19th. This will be released. There's a handful of liquor stores that are going to get this bottle, and beyond that, I'm not really sure exactly what to expect out of this bottle. But
We're about to find out.
you guys help yourself, and then I'll.
okay.
Can I have some?
Well, you were talking, so we just wanted to
True,
get a head start.
true. Thank you. All right, so this is where we're gonna go to and Bobby Hirschman's funny. We appreciate the support. He invited about I don't know how many people, about almost 100 people to the community page, and there's a Facebook page out there for you guys to join. And he's like, hopefully no one's watching. This is going to be interesting. I've never had a video clip. It wasn't the right format. I wasn't able to convert it. So now we're going to do a little bit of bootleg. So bear with us here. And we're going to have our lovely assistant in the audience, Sean, try to get this on. But we will get this all squared away. So this is going to be Greg from Watershed. And he was kind enough to record this. So hopefully this will work out and you guys can hear it. You got to hold it to the mic, like above the.
Today I'm excited to be back and talking about a new product that we have coming out. Before I hop into that, this product coincides with 10 years at Watershed Distillery, which I think back and it's all gone really, really fast. And it's hard sometimes to remember exactly what it was like during those first days. But I've spent some time lately just because you hit a milestone like this and you start to think back to some of those days. And my memories were much different at that time, were much different than they were today. In fact, I remember early November 2011, and we had 4 months in a row of shrinking sales. And so I kind of woke up each morning and looked in the mirror and had this feeling of like, did we make a huge mistake? Like, what's going on? At the time, our bills that we owed were higher than the money that we had in the bank account. And so there was just this sinking feeling. We were out working as hard as we could. And it was just two of us, my business partner and I. And, as you go through that, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself and about your business. But it's also so unknown. You just don't know. Is this it? Like we had just celebrated our first year anniversary. I say celebrated. We were going the wrong direction, and so there was nothing really fun going on at that time. But we were trying really hard to make it go. And we were really saved by two things. One, lucky for us, the people in Columbus love to support Columbus, and they also like to drink a little bit, which is great. But the second thing, the holidays hit. And November and December are great months to be in the booze industry. Apparently, people like to drink when they get together with their family. I think it's one of those things, if you like your family or don't like your family, you're probably going to have a cocktail when you're there, and celebrating at the end of the year is always a good time for that. So that really saved us, and we saw sales pick up, and we continued to get out there and sell the product and see the support from Columbus. But yeah, it's just, when I think about those times, maybe the closest we've come to that is earlier this year when COVID hit, and there was that huge unknown, and it was just hard to tell for a couple of weeks there what was going to happen to our business. But we somehow made it through the 10 years, which feels great. And along the way, things continued to change. At the beginning, it was just the two of us. We hired our first employee, who's actually still here, by the way, still works for us, in 2013. And then we hired our first sales rep, and she's still here as well, in 2015. So as we brought those team members on and the team started to grow, we saw this, we saw our roles kind of change, which was fun to do. At the beginning, it was us turning on the still and making the product and tasting the product and selling the product. And then fast forward to today, and while I do get to taste it, when I'm doing the fun stuff like this, most of my day is spent in meetings with, with people around here, making sure they have what they need and supporting the business that way. But because things were so tight that first year, we were really hesitant to hire those new people on, and that took a lot. And when you don't know what's coming in the future, you tend to be conservative.
All right, so that is the first video, and thanks for bearing with us. Hopefully you guys can hear that. Actually, I'm gonna, Sean, if you don't mind sticking with this, do one more here, and this is about the actual product here.
So the main reason I came on today was to talk about our brand new product, our barrel strength bourbon. It's finished in apple brandy barrels. It's over 6 years old. This one took a long time to make. It's a fun product. And I'll be honest, it wasn't like 6 years ago we said, all right, these barrels are going to be great and we're going to celebrate our 10-year anniversary with those products. But about 2 years ago, when we went out and we picked some of our favorite bourbon, and we pulled that aside, and as we were dumping apple brandy barrels, we put that bourbon in the used apple brandy barrels. And at that point, we knew this is going to be special. We're going to save it for something really, really fun. And I think at the time we thought, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 8 months before we release this product. But as we put it in there, we really liked what it was doing in the barrel, and we let it sit a little bit longer. And then as we got into 2019 and saw where things were going, we thought, oh, we're going to turn 10 next year. How fun would that be if we let this product age a little bit longer and see what it does? And we're just really, really happy that we did that. I hope that you guys get a chance to try this. There's not much of it. It's pretty limited. As I pour a little bit in the glass, and I'm going to taste some in front of you. So if you're at home listening, watching, on September 19th, we are selling this product. It's going to be in the bottle shop here at Watershed Distillery. We do have a very limited number of bottles. We are going to put some out into the agencies throughout Ohio. So OHLQ website, if you go onto their website, you can find some of it. But what you have, so this ended up at 119 proof. So it's strong. You'll notice on the nose, you get some of these apple notes, I think, on the nose, but you get some of the caramels and the barrel notes as well. And you can tell, on the nose, it's 119 proof. You can feel that on the nose, and you definitely notice some of that heat. And as you taste it, I always say taste the bourbon at barrel strength first, but then I like to have some water nearby, so you can pour a little bit of water, put some drops in. Depending on how much you have, if you just have this much, put a few drops in there, let it open it up, and then sip it again. But I generally like to continue to add water as I drink it. That way you can experience the bourbon at different concentrations or different proofs as you go. And it really lets you taste some of the different flavors of the bourbon. And this particular batch that we have here, I think is great with just a little bit of water in it. So again, taste it at barrel strength, see what you think, but then add a few drops of water, and I think you'd be really, really impressed. I add a few drops in, that's where I think it hits its stride, and it's delicious. Cheers.
All right. So, first of all, thank you, Greg. Hopefully, you guys were able to hear him. We'll try to kind of go over this a little bit. But so I haven't. Have you guys taken a sip of this yet?
Not
Are we
yet.
all patiently waiting?
I was waiting.
Dustin,
I couldn't.
come clean.
You couldn't wait.
I had one drink. I just
Nate,
It's
I'll
itching.
cheers with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Dustin, no. Cheers. Cheers. All right. So again, we've got the Watershed Distillery. This is going to be what Greg was talking about, the barrel strength. This is the limited release. It's a 6-year bourbon, finished in apple brandy barrels, excuse me. And this is coming in this is batch number 001, and it is proofed at 119.3.
comes in a bit warm.
A little warm?
A little warm.
It's good though.
That
It's
is,
Like
that's it's good. It's different.
it is very different. Do you drink much brandy, or have you drank much brandy? Either one of you?
I don't
have
drink
not.
much, but I can kind of sense it a little bit here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a deeper apple. It's not like this real citrusy thing. I feel like I was expecting a little bit more of this, like a citrus apple. You know what
Almost
I mean?
like a cider.
Yeah. This is much deeper
Yeah.
as far as that goes.
Yeah, I kind of got not necessarily like a cider, but like a tart Granny Smith. But like you said, Steve, that deeper apple. Like, it's kind of hard to describe it, like really pinpoint it, but you can tell it's there. It's definitely got that kind of sweeter note, but
this
slight
is
tart apple.
This is this bottle is not for I don't have my what's the temperature right now?
80 degrees.
Yeah, so it's 80 degrees. This is not, I'm going to say this right now. If you guys are lucky enough to grab a bottle, but I would, it's kind of like that old rye rule that we had on the podcast where, when
It has to be below 55.
I don't know about 55, but yeah, maybe a little bit cooler, less humid than
70.
today. And that's only because this does have a little bit of that. It's almost like when I think of like the apple side of it, it's like an apple pie type of an apple. You know what I mean? It's like that warm, like baking
Cinnamon.
type.
Yeah. I could get that. I get some that sweetness, some of that apple on the nose for sure.
Yeah.
It stands out. When it coats your palate, kind of sticks to the back of your tongue. The finish lingers just for a little bit, but slowly dissipates as it goes down. At least for me, I got some dryness in the mouth a little bit, like it.
Dryness.
Yeah, it was kind of odd. It could have been combining with a cigar, but it was kind of one of those where you take a drink, you feel like you need a drink of water or another drink of whiskey right after it.
Well, that can make it dangerous.
Nate, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
No, it is very good. That heat does last a little bit, but I think the flavor of the apple kind of overpowers it on the finish.
Yeah.
So like I definitely taste the heat. Like you're at 119 proof, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to taste some heat to it. But I think that apple flavor is just so rich without being sweet. Like you were talking about, it's not like an apple pie. It's apple. So it's very, very pleasant. I was actually thinking back, like, wasn't there, didn't we have the one guest on from the Cleveland area that brought an apple brandy?
Yeah.
He brought one or donated?
Donated.
That was Eric Black.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Eric Black, and he commented actually on the feed here. He commented earlier. Did I pass it? Yeah, he says, I can't wait to do our barrel pick at Watershed in a couple weeks. So he's
kudos, Eric.
funny
Yeah,
to bring him up.
It's gonna be a heck of an experience for sure.
Yeah.
And I will say, we all mentioned that apple being in there. Obviously it's aged in the apple brandy barrels, but it's definitely not in a bad way whatsoever. No. Like it's a pleasant difference to the normal bourbon that you would have out there.
I really enjoy the nose of it.
Yes.
Because we had a little nip of the regular Watershed bourbon before we started, and it's been a few months since I had it, and I was smelling it, and there was this flavor that I was trying to pinpoint down, and it's like a honey wheat on the regular bourbon that I got.
Yeah.
This still picked it up.
Really?
Still picked it up. It was a little bit more subdued, but it still had kind of a floral, and the other one I thought it was a pumpernickel aroma to it on the nose.
It's very precise.
You're getting deep there.
Look at me. I like bread.
You're a carb guy. I'd call you a carb guy.
A bread connoisseur.
Yeah.
You're definitely into the carbs. Eric Black did say he donated the Tomfoolery Applejack. That's what you were thinking of.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember something right. No, it's very, very good. When we first poured it, obviously we wanted to wait until the videos from Greg before we all started talking about it.
Yeah.
And the whole time watching those videos, I'm just keep putting my nose in the glass, just smelling it, because every time you smell it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to drink
so
this
enjoyable.
So much.
It's so enjoyable, and I will say, for it being 80 degrees out, I think it helps the fact of the sun being down. It's not quite as bad.
It gets cooler, and the sun goes away. Yeah,
that's usually how that works. I guess
I agree with that statement.
But I think this is like
a good review of.
We talk about whiskeys being a great nightcap. I think this one would essentially take the cake if you're not wanting something
nightcap
too overpowering, but this comes in with a higher proof, but still backs it with a unique sweetness.
This is so sorry, Nate. I want to say we'll have another glass out of this, and Sean, you want to try it for being our lovely assistant. But I want to keep about a half a bottle, and I say we revisit this in the fall.
What I was going to say is
that'd be cool.
This tastes like the kind of bottle that would be good in a couple months on a crisp fall night. Say you and your significant other just went apple picking all day, and you're sitting out on the brand new patio. You got a fire going. Is
this me?
Sounds very vaguely familiar.
I feel like Liz has been talking to you because we did the apple picking thing last year.
Yeah.
I feel like Nate's planning a date.
Here's my thing. Okay,
no.
My thing about apple picking is I enjoy you choking on that. Is it a little too strong?
I was setting the scene.
No.
just
I love how you.
apple picking for me. I'm okay. I don't know how to really say this without sounding like I'm.
An asshole.
No, it's probably gonna
Oh.
come across as a little bit of that. I just don't. It's cool. I just don't get it. I don't get the whole appeal. Like it's fine.
I'm with you.
It's like I went with Liz last year. I've been apple picking before. I think it's a great time if you do it. I just don't get excited about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't get excited about going out an hour away.
It's not about picking
Now,
the
granted, I
apples.
was smoking a cigar, which I don't think you're supposed to do in the apple.
But you're
Is
outside.
it an orchard? Is that what we're
Orchard,
calling
yeah.
it? There weren't many kids around. There were some.
You just start walking away from the kids, and before you know it, you're lost in the back of the orchard.
I think that they walked away from me more.
They saw you and then heard your voice, and they're like, "Oh, shit."
Well, and then it's not fair either. Like I feel like for the kids, so we went to the apple, and it's a little bit of a tangent. So Greg and everyone at Watershed, you guys did the apple brandy barrels. This is what brought it up. I just think that. So Liz is 5'1", first of all. So it's like you go there too late in the season, like you can't get anything. Everything's too high, everything's been picked over.
Yeah.
They
Right now
should
we're
have
in that
ladders
prime
available.
season.
I think it's yeah.
So
See,
you're
apple
right.
picking isn't necessarily about picking the apples. It's
What is it about then? It's
About-
in the name, it's the whole thing.
that's just the activity. It's about being with your significant other. Just having the time together.
Okay.
There are easier ways to spend quality time together.
Well, for you, is you watching movies in your basement.
You know what I
and
might do
she's-
though? Put a flask of
upstairs.
this with me and I'll be fine.
No, Steve and I's idea of going apple picking is you go to the grocery store and they have those bags of apples right there.
Jonathan Herring says, need an apple stick. Is this, I guess that's a thing. Is you
like-
just talking
it's
about a
like
stick
a-
that you just hit the tree with or hit the apples with? Or is that,
Or like
is that an
the-
official apple
Take your
stick?
the
soft-
extended
take your softball
pickup
bat.
tool.
Take your
Softball
softball bat,
bat.
start whacking the limbs until the
So
apples
there I
fall
was
in.
walking through the apple trees with a baseball bat, cigar going, and a flask of Watershed 6-year limited release barrel strength.
Sounds like a good time.
I don't know. If,
This is a good bottle.
I don't
This
know if
is-
that sounds like the beginning of a Hallmark movie or a horror film.
I didn't have a hockey mask on. I think
or
so.
face
This,
paint.
yeah, I think this bottle. It is. Do you guys add a little water? I did it because Greg said.
I was gonna do. I was
add
gonna
a-
do it
Oh,
on
not
glass
yet.
too.
It opens it up even more. This is. It's different. It is a very enjoyable flavor. You guys keep talking about the aroma. I think this is something that the aroma is fantastic. But
Yeah.
this is definitely, like I said, I think this is a fall drink. I don't think this is necessary. I mean, you can drink it anytime. Air conditioning would be nice. That
Yeah.
might actually make this a little. It's, I mean, 119.3. I think we said
Yeah.
119.3. This is it's a little hot. It's good though. This is
It's
it's unique. I like the fact that for their 10-year anniversary bottle, they did something unique. It's not just
Yeah.
a barrel strength. They did it. They talked about it when they were on before about how they like to do the different things. What was it? The cherries?
Yeah, they do the cherry.
Not the Traverse City like we were talking about, but what was it? I can't remember how to say the
I forget. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Oh,
Very
the
unique.
Nocino.
Nocino.
It's
That-
walnut.
So they do very different stuff there. Yeah, you want to try Sean? If you want to try some as well.
I think
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the biggest thing that really sets this apart from other bottles is we have so many different barrel finishes out there
Yeah.
in the world, and you know, one of the more popular ones is port wine
yeah,
finishes.
yeah. Angel's
then-
Envy was
Yep.
one of the first one to really do that.
right, and then you know you've got just a bunch of other different varieties, double barrels or double oaks,
Yeah.
things like that. But I don't know off the top of my head that there are any other apple brandy barrel finished bourbons out there, let alone maybe even a brandy barrel finished bourbon.
None that
Um,
sticks out top of my mind.
No, and there's cognac. There's
Yeah.
cognac
Yeah.
and sherry.
Yep.
They're two fairly popular ones. But as far as apple brandy goes, it's a very unique twist to do on a bourbon, and I think they really hit the nail on the head and knocked it out of the park. That's absolutely sure.
Yeah, I highly
This-
recommend. Well, go ahead.
I think this is more well balanced than an apple brandy.
Yeah.
I think that finishing process rounds this out very nicely. Because
Mhm.
sometimes apple brandy can just come across too sharp, and I think with this being a bourbon,
There's got a little bit of that.
Mhm.
it's got just a little bit because of the finish in it.
Yeah.
That's where you get the apple brandy part, but because it's a bourbon finished in it rather than just a straight apple brandy,
Yeah.
it's more well balanced, well rounded, has a better texture and coat on the palate. In the glass, it's got great legs, very oily viscosity to it.
Dude, it's hanging.
Oh, I know.
It's hanging. Look at that.
I
It's
know.
hanging on the glass, like on the side.
Yeah.
That's not going anywhere if you can see.
No,
Yeah.
and that was when I first
Well,
poured the
granted, this
glass.
might be
I
because I haven't
noticed
watched
that.
this glass. That could be.
Well, it's still it did the same thing on
Good,
mine.
okay, good.
Oh yeah, I just-
Watershed was kind enough to also. I don't know if you saw it, like they did the Glencairn here.
a sharp.
Last time we got the swag hats here, which are great for the garage. I think they're awesome. I think they're
Mhm.
great. Anyway, I sent this over for us to have. You guys, we have a couple people actually in the garage also sampling it. So I saw the MSRP. I know you said on the OHLQ here that it was listed higher. I don't know if that's because it's not officially released yet, but my understanding was the MSRP is $69.99.
Well, that's very different than what it says on OHLQ.
I agree.
OHLQ has it over $100.
Yeah. So maybe we'll, again, regardless, it's a good bottle. I would definitely check it out. And again, I will post this week where you'll be able to find this if you can't, if you haven't seen it already, as far as on the 19th. So the cigar, and we'll get back to this because I'm not done talking about this whiskey because I'm gonna have another glass.
Yeah.
Nate, you were looking up the decade to refresh us, I believe.
I was.
This is so the reason we picked the Rocky Patel Decade, and for those of you that had a lot of people asking about what the cigar is, so it's the Rocky Patel Decade. So Rocky Patel, he was on the podcast not too long ago during the shutdown. He tuned in or joined us remotely, which I appreciate. This is their 10th anniversary, which I thought was fitting to do with this bottle, for obvious reasons. Yes. And so Rocky just actually is releasing his quarter century.
Yep.
So this is 15 years ago that they released this cigar, and it had some of the best ratings in their portfolio. And I remember seeing it on top of their banners that they used to have, where it was a 95 rated cigar at one point.
Yep.
So this is. Do you have a little bit of info as far as the breakdown on this?
So really, I mean, the pretty much the only thing they really tell about it that I could find quickly before the show is the wrapper.
Mm-hmm.
You probably know what the wrapper is, Steve.
What's the wrapper? Tell everyone.
It's Sumatra,
Mm-hmm.
which I am a fan of Sumatra wrappers. They tend to have this nice little red hue to them sometimes. I think this one's a little darker than most Sumatra wrappers I've had.
Yeah.
But it's very oily, and it's a very flavorful wrapper.
Very toasted, like a toasted. I'm getting it, and I don't know if it's because I'm smoking it with this drink, but it's got like a little bit of toasted flavors, like I don't know, like toasted bread almost. What about you guys?
Like so toast. Toasted bread.
No,
would be
not
toast.
toast, not toast. Toasted bread.
Okay.
I'm just gonna stick with it because you're absolutely right. You called me out on it. That's how my brain works. I just exposed how slow my my thought process is. I had a lot of old fashioned last night. Okay,
Yes, you did.
Jesus.
No.
By the way, the Watershed Old Fashioned, we had it on the last one.
Phenomenal.
It's fucking good, and it's dangerous because it is like you fill up a glass. I fill up a glass. Nate would agree. I know Dustin would probably do the same thing. We were talking about it before the podcast. The Watershed Old Fashioned, it's a pre-mixed one. If you guys didn't check that out or if you haven't seen it, you pour it over ice and it goes down real easy.
Which is
And
dangerous.
the second one goes down real easy. And the third one and so on.
And then eventually the
And then
bottle.
you look at the bottle
And remember that it's 70
and
proof.
it's yeah. it's 35% alcohol. You're like, no fucking way. This is insane. And then I stand up and I'm like, yes, fucking way. This is a lot of alcohol. I stumbled to bed. Dustin, what do you think about this cigar?
I think it's a really great cigar. It's been a long while since I've had a Decade. So I didn't quite recall what I gathered from it originally, but I do kind of get that toasted
bread
note. Yeah, toasted bread, a toasted pumpernickel.
Sticking with it.
Flavor from it. It's really smooth, kind of mellow, not a ton of sweetness from it.
No,
I get I guess a little bit of oakiness, kind of woody, earthy notes.
Yeah.
I think it kind of counterbalances the whiskey a little bit, because you get some of that sweetness from the apple and the Watershed. But I think overall the cigar is really great. I'm still working my way through it, so I'm excited to see the path that it takes me on.
Yeah. Nate, besides toasted bread, what do you get?
It's got a kind of a softer pepper to it, like not
soft pepper.
It's not as strong a black pepper as say to be a silver.
Yeah,
like a white pepper.
It's not a white pepper. It's not quite that.
So you're saying like it's softer notes. It's not as over. Okay.
Yes. So it has a black pepper, but it's nothing very outgoing. It's just kind of blended together with the wood notes, or almost like a dark roast coffee as well.
Yeah.
Especially on the finish, you kind of get that dark roast coffee note. I do, at least. So, yeah, it is one of their highest rated cigars still, and that was 15 years ago.
Yeah,
and it made the top 25 list in 3 major publications.
Obviously, I had to have done something right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Rocky's done a lot of things right.
So this is very true.
What I find interesting, and I was talking to Rob Wilson, who's also been on the podcast. He's the regional rep for Rocky Patel, and with the quarter century that just came out, the 25 year, I remember the 55 that Rocky put out for his 55th birthday that had some Costa Rican tobacco in it. It's interesting to me with the way that Rocky's kind of gone with some of his more recent blends. So for those that are out there that are Rocky Patel fans, I don't know if you've had the quarter century or not, but it is something that it's got that San Andreas wrapper on it. I feel as though like you look at what he was doing at 10 years in, and he was, I think, more consistent with some of the stuff that was really putting him on the map, some of the vintage stuff that he had been coming out with. I think that this, now you talk about like the softer pepper flavor, like it's more subtleties. To me, it's more toasty and stuff like that. Some of the newer stuff that he's putting out, like especially like the quarter century and that Rocky Patel Sun Grown Maduro.
You got to smoke that. I didn't.
I don't feel bad about that.
I know you don't.
I've not had the quarter century yet.
It's good.
I really enjoy the 20th anniversary too.
The 20th was a little soft. What my point is, I think that he is just getting like some of his releases now, and maybe it's because he already had some like the Decade out there. He had some other like staples in his portfolio that have been strong. He's coming out with stronger cigars and more in your face.
Yeah.
Not saying they're not still have the subtleties and they're good cigars, but it's just a little bit bolder stuff.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to go back 15 years and smoke this Decade blend. And where it sits on that strength and in your face.
To me, this is a little bit more subtle version of the special edition. It's medium to full body. Okay. It's got that pepper note, just not as much as what that special edition has.
Yeah.
And similar in the flavor profile for me, just a little bit more subdued.
Yeah. Yeah. Top Boss says great cigar, top 10 for me for sure. Jonathan Herring, I think, was saying bleached black pepper. I think he's making fun of you. Oh no, he said Matt Beach says white pepper. What the hell is that? And then bleached black pepper, and then someone laughed at it. Got a good conversation. If you guys aren't listening live on Facebook or on YouTube, there is a way to do that every Wednesday night around 7:30. Tonight was a little later. We're trying to get that technology thing licked again. But, yeah, there's definitely something. Jonathan also called out the second F-bomb of the night and said, cheers, first and second F-bomb of the night. I don't think it'll be the last.
Fuck no.
At this point. There you go. There's 3. Drink.
Oh, I need to pour if I'm going to drink.
All right. Do you want to do another one of these right now, or you want
Yeah.
to say, okay, stick on this? We'll do one more each.
Because I noticed after I poured mine, I looked at your guys' glasses. I was like, well, shit, I had the smallest pour.
Yeah.
I mean, you poured it.
I
You did
know,
pour
but
it.
I was trying. I wasn't trying to, hog it. But then again, if we're only having 2 glasses,
Well, I just feel like it was a gift bottle. I don't want
Yes.
to, I don't want
Let's-
to kill the bottle tonight.
I agree.
Just you want to pour a couple like that?
I agree. And then I'm going to add just a splash
Perfect.
or 2 of water.
Yeah. The decade for me, and even if Rocky was on this, and if he's watching, or I hope he is, it has never been my favorite Rocky Patel, and I don't go back to it really much at all. Now, what I will say though is that when I smoke it, I tend to think, why don't I smoke this more often? I don't know if that really makes sense. It's a very good cigar. I enjoy it every time I smoke it, but I like some of his other blends better. And so I typically, when I smoke a Rocky Patel, I don't think a decade. I think of like.
What's your favorite Rocky Patel?
Right now, my favorite Rocky Patel is it's a toss up, and they're very different. It's between the sun-grown Maduro and the Old World Reserve Corojo.
That's a good one.
They're very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
The ALR second edition is really, really good
ALR.
too. Yeah.
So yeah, Sean's in the audience. He's smoking a sun-grown.
Not the same as the
Oh.
Sun-Grown Maduro, which was number 2
Jake's
cigar of the
smoking
year
it.
a few years ago.
Yeah, it's a good cigar. That's another one that's not typically on the top of my list. But the sun-grown Maduro is a completely different blend that is on the top of my list. That's a very good cigar. Again, just like the Decade, solid seller for most retailers. I think it does really well in their portfolio. But like the Old World Reserve Corojo, I've said it before, from his portfolio, that goes with almost anything.
Great medium body smoke.
Yeah, it's smack dab in the middle, and it goes with pretty much, in my opinion, like I said, almost anything.
Yeah. For the longest time, the vintage 90,
Yeah,
I think the one that still has the red band.
yeah,
Because it used to be the 99 too had the same color band. And then they're like, yeah, let's change it. The 90's got
the 90.
that maroon band to it. The 92's got the black band on it. For the longest time, that 90 was probably my favorite Rocky Patel that I've had.
It's funny. The 90 and 92 look very similar, and I've been told, and I don't, that it's more or less very similar blend of tobacco except for the Rapid Leaf.
Yeah,
and they taste.
Miguel's got a funny story about back then going and touring Rocky's factory with Rocky and asking him about the 90 and 92.
Yeah, we don't expose that. We'll let Miguel say that if he wants to on air.
Yeah. So what do you guys think of the pairing? Not necessarily rating.
I was taking another sip. I'm sorry, that was dead air there. I was taking another sip.
You're fine.
LB1. Forgot about
someone said LB1.
I think the LB1 has more pepper than that special edition.
Special edition?
Yeah. To me it did anyways when I had it. I preferred the special edition over the LB1. Both were really good, but that special edition was
Jason Gamble out there says
better.
LB1 is awesome.
See, I thought the special edition had more spice to it.
Avi out there says ALR second edition is his top Rocky, then the sun-grown Maduro. So it sounds like we've got some similar liked minds out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have Sean, if you don't mind, get the mic again, and we'll try to get this back up. I'm gonna cue it up. Before we get into the ratings, I do want to get Greg's comments, because he was kind enough to do another video here. So bear with me just 1 second. All right, so let me get this up on the screen here, and then we will for those listening on the audio, this is me trying to do my best with the videos that were sent in. This is the first time doing it, so it's a little different. I thought it was going to be a little easier, and it didn't work the way we wanted it to. So I'm going to add him on there, and then you ready there, Sean?
Appreciate your guys' patience.
Yeah.
So guys, I know at the end of each program you have you apply some rankings to the spirit that you have that you're tasting. And when I came on and tasted our regular bourbon a few months back, I didn't give it a perfect score. I gave it a nice high score. I love our bourbon, but I also understand it's 4-year-old, and it takes a little bit of time to get great bourbon. So I thought I would throw out there, maybe I'm biased, this is my baby here, but I think this one's a 10 out of 10. I love it. I think our production team and what we put together really turned out delicious. And with those apple brandy barrels, giving it a little bit of influence there at the end, I think it's amazing. So interested to hear what you guys think, but 10 out of 10 for me. Thanks, guys.
All right, so that's it. Yeah. So I wanted to throw his thoughts out there before we kind of got into the pairing and everything else, because this is where we typically will do at the end of part one. We'll throw our pairing ratings. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the cigars as well. So, Dustin, you brought up the pairing. Why don't you start?
I see what you did there.
That's right.
So for the whiskey, I'll start there. Overall, the flavor combinations are fantastic. The nose on it is, I think we can unanimously agree that it keeps bringing us back to the glass, even if it is just to recapture those nose notes. I think overall, I'd give it a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very unique, but it's fantastic. It really is. And whether it $69.99 or even $102, to be honest with you, I'd buy a bottle. It'd be that perfect nightcap, especially on the cooler nights. And I'm excited to revisit this in the fall, mid to late fall when it gets cooler out. I think this would be perfect.
So, I don't know if we're going to kill the bottle that night, but I'm going to set this aside. What's left of the bottle, we'll set this aside, and then I'm hoping to get a little bit of patio furniture. Even if I don't, we can sit out back after a podcast, maybe October or something like that, and sip on this when it cools down a little bit after a podcast. I think it'd be nice. Oh,
absolutely. For the cigar, I would probably go an 8. I think it's a really good cigar. Some really good notes. Smokes very well. Construction's fantastic. As I've not had any issues with any Rocky Patels when it comes to construction, draw, or smoke. Together, I would probably give it about an 8.5. I think they pair together.
What was the cigar rating?
8.
8. Okay, so we got 10 and 8, and now you're at 8.5.
8.5, yeah, as the pairing. It's I'm kind of doing it as like kind of separate entities, not so much a average of the two. They both stand well on their own. I think together the cigar pulls out a little bit more of those apple notes from the whiskey, but you get more of that toasted oakiness from it as well. It's definitely a really good pairing. I recommend giving it a try. But that's my thoughts anyways.
And let me ask you this. I'll ask you the same question, Nate, when you get to it. But nothing against the Rocky Patel Decade, but because we're really featuring, the Watershed, is there a cigar that you think would pair better with this off the top of your head? From Rocky's portfolio.
From Rocky's portfolio?
Yeah, keep it narrow. Let's stay, we've got Rocky on there.
I would probably say maybe something that's not quite as earthy. The 20th would be great. It's mellower for a medium body.
For me, it's been too long since I've had the 20th
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Okay.
The LR would be fantastic. I think it's a cigar that would pretty much go with just about anything.
Gotcha. Nate, how about you for the pairing, the cigar, and the whiskey in any order you want to do it? But out of 10 being the best, and 1 being the lowest. I swear to God, if you say one,
Neither one's a one.
I was like, Jesus.
Neither one is. Why were you?
I don't know. Like, you each had your week of being in my opinion, the 80s Russian judge. You know what I mean?
The Simon Cowell.
It was the mezcal. All right. It was the mezcal. That was not the worst rating I ever gave. It was the worst one I gave on the podcast. It was not the worst rating.
You
I ever
gave
gave
it
in
2
garage.
from the audience one week.
Yes, because that was just
All right. Go on. I'm sorry.
so.
So
Cigar,
higher than a 1.
Yeah. So cigar, I'm going to give it an 8.
Yes.
Solid smoke. Not my favorite Rocky, but it's a solid, flavorful smoke. It is an enjoyable smoke. If medium to full body is what you like something with a little bit of spice to it. That toasted bread that Steve alluded to.
Toasted bread. Yeah. No, that's all right.
No, I mean if that's your palate, then yes, this is the cigar in Rocky's portfolio that is for you. It's an enjoyable smoke. Like you said, Rocky makes so many cigars. He's one of the biggest out there at this point that he's got so many fantastic cigars. I think sometimes this gets overlooked.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why necessarily, especially working in the industry, we don't necessarily go back to it so much because we've had it, we like it. It doesn't blow our mind. It's just solid.
Yeah.
The whiskey, 9.7.
Okay.
I can't give it it's up there. It's great.
Why not 9.8?
Or 9.9.
All right. So 9.7. Yeah. Okay.
Very, very enjoyable. I absolutely enjoyed this whiskey.
Yeah.
It was absolutely fantastic. I think adding a couple drops of water toned down the brandy flavor to it.
Okay.
Still got the apple. It toned down that brandy sharpness a little bit. I didn't put that much water in, but
it's not your glass.
Good point.
Bam.
No, still very enjoyable. Still the highest rated whiskey I've rated on the podcast. And personally, I've only had one whiskey that I've ever considered to be higher than this.
What's that?
It's a barrel pick of Angel's Envy.
Got it.
That I've been saving for a very special occasion to bring onto the podcast. So
episode 150.
Or should it be 156 since that'll be 3 years? I don't know.
All right. Pairing,
I'm going to go the other way from Dustin. I think the spice notes of the cigar kind of take away from the sweetness of the whiskey a little bit.
Yeah.
And I like the sweetness of the whiskey. And so smoking the cigar with the whiskey, it kind of takes away the flavor of the whiskey a little bit.
Okay.
So I give the pairing a 7. I think they're both better on their own than together.
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from. I'd say so. The whiskey, once again, for those that are tuning in, we've been talking about, and we've been fortunate enough, and we're very grateful that Watershed Distillery gifted this bottle to us to have. It's the barrel strength. It's the apple brandy barrel finished 6-year bourbon. It's, like I said, barrel strength. It's 119.3 proof. And this is from batch 001. So I assume they're going to be doing more of this. But again, it's a very limited release. I don't know if they're going to continue this. Like they're going to do more. I know they had kind of alluded to that when we talked to them the first time, that they might, have a product that it's not just a one and done, but it's going to be obviously a batch, a small batch type of a thing. I don't like giving 10s. I'm going to give this a, when I look at, so you got the price, you got the fact that this is an anniversary special bottle. This is something that is extremely unique.
Yes.
This is tough to put, I think, against other bourbons. It's unique enough, and I don't want to scare anyone away in a sense that if you're looking for like your typical bourbon or barrel strength, this is very unique. It does have a bit of that apple, but like I said, it's not like a citrus or like a really bright apple flavor to it.
It's not like
it's
drinking
going to be
a cider or a hard cider.
No, and I think they hit it with some of their tasty notes, which I haven't brought up on purpose because I wanted to see what you guys thought. Aromas of baked apple, toasted almonds. I can't really vouch for the almond part.
I could see it.
Flavors of warm baking spices, dark fruit and caramel, crisp red apple finish with medium mouthfeel. I think it's not. I mean, they say crisp red apple finish. That might be where you're getting that little bit of sharpness. But I'd say for all intents and purposes, and because this is a anniversary bottle, and I've never had anything quite like it, I will give this a 10 as well. I think this is something that they have everything to be proud of on this. And
Absolutely.
it's not, when I say a 10, it's not like necessarily my end all be all favorite bottle of whiskey or a bottle of any spirit. I just think that for what they've done here, I think this is a 10 out of 10 effort, if that makes sense.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think very, very, cheers to Watershed. Here's to another decade of success. I know you guys made it through all this stuff. They have a great local bar and kitchen as well.
Mhm.
So I think you guys are doing some fantastic things. And Greg, cheers to you and everyone at Watershed for this fantastic anniversary, well-deserved 10 years of creating great spirits. The Rocky Patel Decade. I'm gonna say I'll do the take it out a little bit. I'll give it a 8.5. Like I said, it's not my favorite Rocky Patel. It's a very good cigar. I think this is something that there's a reason it got rated so highly. I think there's a reason that it sells so well. And unfortunately, he's put out so many other good cigars in the last 15 years since this release that it's tough for me to say that this is a 10 out of 10 for me. And maybe back 15 years ago, it may have been. It may have been a little bit, maybe that's why I got highly rated. If it was released today versus everything else on the market, maybe get rated a 95, maybe, be on the top 25 list again. But I think that he's taken the company in a different direction, in a broader direction, if you will. And that's what I was talking about, like the quarter century and some of the other more recent releases. This is something I already gave, the Rocky Patel Sun-Grown Maduro. The Old World Reserve Corojo is definitely something that I would rate a little bit higher just based on my palate. Construction-wise, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It was actually in a top 25 2 years ago.
That's amazing. In Aficionado?
Cigar Snob.
Cigar Snob.
It was number 10 in 2018 for Cigar Snob.
Yeah.
It was number 7 for Cigar Journal in 2013.
Yeah.
And then it was number 15 in Cigar Aficionado in 2008. But Cigar Aficionado, even though out of those 3 ratings, it ranked lower than the other 2 publications, Cigar Aficionado gave it the highest rating compared, of all 3 publications.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'm a pairing. I'm kind of with you guys that it's not my favorite pairing. I think that the bottle and the cigar are both great on their own. I think going together, I would probably smoke something different. That the Corojo I keep referring to from Rocky's catalog, I think would go really well with this.
I'm trying to save the rest of my glass for the second cigar.
Yeah, Spada. We can get you another glass if you want to pour, the bourbon in there.
Okay.
There you go.
I'll just drink my water and pour the bourbon.
There you go. Perfect. That's being resourceful. But yeah, so I'd say the pairing, I'd give it an 8. You know what I mean? I think the cigar is a little bit better than the pairing. I think the bottle is a little bit better than the pairing. I like the idea that we had, and Nate, you kind of with the decade we were talking about in the shop. I think the decade being a 10-year anniversary for Rocky. I think that with the Watershed doing 10 years, I think it's something that was very fitting. And I don't say it's a bad pairing. And Dustin, you said you'd recommend it. I agree. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing if you had this cigar in this bottle and you're like, well, they said it was bad, like not a great pairing. I wouldn't do it.
So we've talked about, revisiting this bottle, in a couple months when it's a little cooler.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think when it's a little cooler, maybe this cigar might make it pair a little better?
It's tough to say. I mean, that's something that, we learned a while back, when you're smoking cigars and in one of the like if you're down in Honduras or Dominican or Cuba or Nicaragua, or even like when I was I brought up the story before when, Eric Espinosa was the one that told me that the first time, is like, make sure when we were blending the BS Silver, make sure you take these blends when we were working with the prototypes, these are our top 3 or 5 or whatever we had, take them home and smoke them in Ohio because it'll taste different. And I think the environment does absolutely change it. So that's a very good question.
Let me ask you guys this, being more of the cigar connoisseurs than myself. Sticking with the decade or the 10th anniversary, what other 10th anniversary cigar out there do you think pair maybe better than the decade would?
That's going awfully specific.
Yeah, it is.
Another 10th anniversary cigar.
I would say possibly, and it was limited. They don't really do it anymore, but like the Tatuaje 10-year when they did those special sizes, and they I think they tweaked it a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong there. The new Perdomo that we did.
I was thinking the
with
Perdomo.
Nicholas a couple weeks ago. I think that sun-grown might go well with it just because a little bit of more sweetness in that cigar.
What about the Maduro?
Probably not. I think that'd be too much. Yeah, it's too much.
And that was the first cigar at the shop last night that you mentioned about possibly doing with this pairing. Since when we had Nicholas on, we did the sun grown. We didn't talk about the Maduro, and I was like, well, we just did a Perdomo. Let's do something else. And 2 shelves above the Perdomo is the Rocky Patel Decade. I'm like, let's do that. We haven't done a Rocky in a while. Let's do that one But yeah, I don't remember much about the Tatuaje 10th anniversary. I think the Tatuaje, that core line, the brown label, I think that might go well with this because I think that's got a little less spice, a little smoother, kind of leathery note to it.
Yeah. Well, that being said, I mean, I'd love to have Greg and Ann. I think we're getting Ann Dimick on. I was talking to her last night. There might be one where the conversation on the Bourbon and BS community page quickly turned when I was asking about topics. It turned into I forget. There was Amy who's been on, Ann who's been on, and there was another, and I'm drawing a blank.
She's been on?
No, she hasn't been on, but these three were going back and forth, and basically I think that it's going to be me with these 3 ladies coming up, and I'll basically probably just be on the side over here, get it kicked off, and I don't think I'm going to, from knowing where that conversation went on the Facebook page and knowing Ann and Amy, I feel like I will be kind of a moderator at that point. So that might be a fun episode. But Ian, we're looking forward to having you back on, and hopefully we'll get Greg. And I know that we need to go over to Watershed and have some of their stuff there, try some of the other spirits, check out the place, do a tour. So I encourage everyone else, if you're in the Columbus area, to do much of the same. I want to thank our sponsors for part 1 as we round this out, and thank you everyone for bearing with us with the technology there. But Tinderbox at Easton, that's who provided the Rocky Patel Decade. If you guys are in the Columbus area, stop by Tinderbox at Easton, or you can always call or follow them on Instagram, Facebook. Reach out if you need anything. The specials they run every week, fantastic specials. Follow them on social media, and then they do shipping once a week or so. So that's something that you guys can follow them. And thank you, Tinderbox at Easton. Also, Altadis USA. I'm looking forward to smoking the Monte Cristo Espada, which is all Plasencia tobacco, which I love. I think it's a fantastic cigar. This is the original release, and we've got the was it 5x52? I believe 5x52, 5x54. So check out that cigar as well. And then BS Cigar Company, I got a gold. If I don't know if I'm going to make it all night after all that Watershed old fashioned last night, but if I do, that's the 3rd cigar of my rotation. But the BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver, are now available. And again, you can check them out on social media, and you can order those, and they can get shipped to you. Patreon.com. You guys have been awesome. I've been blown away by the support from everyone out there. We've got the shirts. These guys are wearing them. Dustin, sit up straight, please. Thank you. Pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. On the back is the logo. Should be some more swag coming out. We were talking with Josh from Altadis last week. We've got some more swag coming for you for the patrons as far as some cutters, lighters, and things of that nature. So we're working on the details of that. Other than that, guys, cheers. Again, this is fantastic. We've had a lot of support. Watershed, you guys
really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Keep up the great work. And guys, check out this bottle if you're fortunate enough to find one. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
For those listening on the live feed, this is the time we take a quick intermission. If you guys need to hit the head or light up another cigar, pour another drink, please do so. Other than that,
hey, Sean,
we're going to get into the second part here momentarily.
Either another Glencairn or a rock size. Can you go get, please?
This bottle's, I mean, it's unique. It's good.
It is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Like I wasn't expecting that much of that apple brandy note to it.
Yeah.
Like I was expecting just a little bit of sweetness,
You like
kind of round it off a little bit.
I'm not a brandy fan by like nature, but their apple brandy that they sell.
Yeah.
Is stupendous. It's
Yeah.
great for mixers. It's great straight.
Yeah.
Great mix.
So then you probably do like this.
This is outstanding.
Yeah.
Like the front of it is super tangy and like it hits on that apple, but it's almost like vanilla in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and then it hits really sharp at the end, and I really like it.
Yeah.
If only there was a mic for him to get on and say all
Well,
that.
you just sent Sean inside.
I know, but all he's got to do is
Well, go ahead. Well, he doesn't know. He's never been here. That's part of our live studio audience.
Yeah.
We'll get
Different
you guys,
Jake.
you guys just want to roll into part 2?
Yeah.
Sure.
You can.
Need a break?
I'm good. I'm
You're,
ready
you're
to go.
driving the car. We're just the kids in the back.
Not now, damn it.
No yelling on the bus.
All right. I'm mad I made none of you laugh. Jonathan is ready for your shirt. Yeah, Jonathan, we might be able to do that. I need to get you that. You're absolutely right. Appreciate that. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 135, part 2. Nate is pouring a little bit of the Watershed bourbon, Watershed bourbon, excuse me.
It poured a little fast.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
it's a
sure
liter
that's what
bottle.
happened.
Okay. We were gifted, if you're checking out part 2, if you haven't looked at part 1 or listened to part 1 on the audio on iTunes, Spotify, and everything else, we had the Watershed, and I'm still sipping on it, the 6-year. This is their 10th anniversary bottle. It is finished in apple brandy barrels, and it is barrel strength, 119.3. We all gave it very, very good reviews. This is
Highest
something
ratings
that-
we've given something so far.
I think this is something unique they've got. So check it out.
Very
I want to thank
special.
our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, for the featured cigar, the Rocky Patel Decade, that I'm still smoking on. I think we all are.
Mhm.
And Altadis USA for the Monte Cristo Espada for sponsoring the podcast and the continued support. And also the BS Cigar Company, the Gold and Silver are now available. And you can always reach out to the podcast page or on the community page if you guys want to find out how to get any of those cigars. We're happy to point you in the right direction. Patreon.com/BourbonBS podcast. This is where you guys can support. And it's just a monthly thing. You can do it as long as you want. You can do one-time donation, whatever you want to do. There's 3 tiers, $5 tier, $10 tier, and $25 tier. And you can edit that to anything you want. It's really helped us out. It lets us do more and more stuff with the podcast. And I greatly appreciate the support. And if you guys are enjoying this, please share.
Did you mention?
Please share. Not yet.
Does,
Please share. Hang on.
Okay.
He's all
Shut
in the
up.
comments. All right, that's
It
enough
had,
for
it
you.
had nothing to do with the comments, actually.
Right there.
Yeah.
I want, if you guys are enjoying this, please share the feed. Yes, Dustin. I'm sorry.
Wait till he finishes
I was-
his intro.
Reversing back to the Tinderbox, and did you?
Oh.
If there were any specials going on currently?
There is a special going on. There'll be one new one announced tomorrow as well. So
Huh?
check them
it out.
Tinderbox
Stay tuned.
Easton on Facebook, Instagram, and all that good stuff. And
Can I-
then I thought you were pointing, since you were pointing to it, Ray Cheshire, who's tuning in. Did you already give a mention to Bobby and Holly for the birth of their beautiful baby boy? We have not. We are right now. So Bobby, probably not listening tonight. Bobby Crow, he's been on the podcast a handful of times, and he's
Mhm.
been a good part of the community
He's
as well.
Donated some fantastic
He's donated
bottles.
some fantastic bottles. And I am drawing a blank on the baby boy's name.
Me too.
It's not Bobby Jr.
He
We are
wouldn't be that
Terrible,
cruel.
terrible friends. Ryan Jones asking any BS specials. Yeah, Ryan, for you, just let me know what you need, and we'll hook up and we'll send it to you. And a shout out to Ryan. He's part of the community as well. Been very, very vocal and been a big supporter of the podcast. And he's in Illinois. I want to give a shout out and positive wishes and everything else to his wife.
Yeah.
Bobby's son's name is Julian James Crow. So
There you go.
that's fantastic.
So
All right. Well, go ahead.
Dustin had brought up the special, and it made me. I thought about this the other day. So I know during the shutdown and everything, Steve, you were being as creative as possible and doing samplers specials every week.
True.
Still doing that.
Yeah.
Before all that happened, like what we were doing is we were doing like 15% off on the cigar that we were featuring on the podcast.
This is true.
Is there any chance of adding that in there in the future again?
Sure. Rocky Patel Decade. We can do 15% off if you mention the Bourbon BS podcast at Tinderbox at Easton.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Surprise, Brian.
Not for you guys though. You have to pay full price.
Okay.
Wait,
I'm just saying.
I work there.
Exactly. Even more reason. So the topic tonight, it's interesting, and I didn't tell these guys, and they didn't really ask. There's two things. One, I think was an obvious one. It was about the fact that we wanted to talk about, celebrating anniversaries and milestones and stuff of that nature. The other part is procrastination. I'm trying to pull up exactly what I put on there. So we are, so basically under pressure is something, different areas of life, making decisions. Are you a procrastinator, planner, or somewhere in between? And like I said, we want to talk about accomplishments and celebrating milestones. So kind of an open discussion here, because it's funny, Dustin, Nate, and I have been working on this. Jake, in the past, and Nate and I probably talk the most just because we see each other more often. It's doing something like this. It always reminds me of just other things that are going on, is the fact that when you're trying to every week come up with content, every week you're trying to pick a bottle, every week you're trying to do this. I know it sounds not tedious for anyone that doesn't have to do it. It's like, oh, you have to crack a bottle that was gifted to you. You have to smoke a cigar that is sponsored, like, oh, so rough. The second part, 135 episodes in, I feel like sometimes it gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
Sometimes it seems like redundant.
It's a little, sometimes I think that's more the tone of where we're at in the moment of the world. I think that's something I mentioned it before. I think it was maybe last week or whatever, but I've been listening to a couple podcasts. They're recording episodes and they're not even like airing those. They're not releasing them because they go back and listen to it. The one was Andy Frisella, and it's the Real AF. And he was like, we recorded like 2 other episodes and we haven't even released them because we went back and kind of listened to it. We're done recording. We're like, that's kind of the same thing we've been saying for the last like 2-3 months. It's like we're on repeat. And so I looked at this and I'm thinking, like, I always used to be a procrastinator. I really, not as much anymore. I think I've learned to plan a little bit more, but I go back to like high school. I mean, I was the one that I never really did homework except for maybe like the period before it was due. I mean, I'd just be like, like in between classes, I'd be knocking it out. I used to piss off some people. Like I remember in math class, it was something like we were in honors calculus. And I'm not saying I'm a genius by any means. I was able to regurgitate to a point. Math always made sense. And it was like something like, I remember this girl, I forget her name. And she looked back after we got our test back and she's like, what'd you get? And I was like, I got an 89. She's like, I got a 93. I know you didn't even study for it. And I spent like 4 days on this. And I was like, sorry. She probably did way better in college than I did. I graduated, which was enough, but
she's probably a doctor now.
Yeah, she's probably not drinking whiskey in her garage.
Or maybe she's making it.
Maybe. But I mean, it was like, even in college, it was funny. Like I didn't have a computer. My roommates always did. So I chose to buy a 1986 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham with my summer money instead of buying a computer. Smart move.
Priorities.
Yeah. But I remember my one roommate that I lived with for 2 years, he kind of got in the habit of just allowing me to, like, he'd be asleep, sometimes still passed out from drinking the night before, and I'd have like a paper due. And it would be like a 3 or 4 page paper. And it would be due at like 11 a.m. So there I was in his, like, he's sleeping over there. Lights are off. I've got headphones in. It's like 6 a.m. And there I am just typing out bullshit. Just like I'm playing the piano, basically. I'm like listening to the music and I'm just like, that sounds good. That sounds good. And then I scanned back. And then I remember like I turned in one paper, got it back. I think there's like a paragraph circled. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. It didn't. It made no sense. I mean, I was just like, I don't know if I cut and pasted something that didn't, like, it was just like, didn't fit in the rest of it. I don't know if I was thinking about something else and just regurgitating what was in my mind, but it had nothing to do with the rest of the paper. So I think this podcast has proven, for those that have listened for a while, that the fact that this is sometimes a 2-3 hour show, none of it's scripted. that I have maybe not perfected, but I've strengthened that part of bullshit, which is bourbon and BS, is that we can just do this and we've had some really good conversations over the last couple of years.
I'm just flying by the seat of our pants.
Whiskey helps. But I've tried to move away from there's a lot of negatives of procrastination. One, the stress, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It adds more stress. Sometimes it delays the stress, and that's nice, because if you're just constantly planning, and I'm always like, there's certain things that I look into and I'm constantly planning. I'm just, and it causes way too much stress over time, because it's like you almost overdo it. I do. I don't know how you guys are, but I like to try to walk that line between planning and a little bit of procrastination. It's like I do work, I think, well under pressure. And with this part of the career now doing, the cigar thing, I've learned to plan more, because there's a lot more moving parts. I think when there's a lot of moving parts and more people involved, you can't just procrastinate. But when it's just on you, yeah, I still would be writing papers. I would still be, coming up with topics for a podcast like this, and doing it like 20 minutes prior, and then you guys ask. You guys didn't even ask. I was like, "Did you guys see what the topic is?" And they're like, "No, actually." And it's like, "Well, we start in 5 minutes."
Well,
It's about procrastination. Hey, cheers.
To your credit, I mean, you're good at scheduling guests and planning who we're going to have on and stuff like
That's
that.
a good point.
Like, you do have a calendar set up, and you have guests
Structure.
scheduled, in the weeks in the future.
That's fair.
Going forward.
Mhm.
So you at least have that.
There's that fine line I'm talking about.
Sometimes when it comes to the topic, you don't know what's going to happen that inspires you until it comes time that you need it to.
There's a handful of things that inspire me. Sometimes it's things in the news. Sometimes it's people that are in my life or that, I run across. I'd say 6 out of 10 times, maybe 7 out of 10 times, it's alcohol that inspires me as well.
Just 6, 7.
7.5.
Okay. Okay. I think in regards to the topics, we can sometimes plan them out in advance, but I know there's been a lot of times where we'd have a topic planned going into it, and then 15 minutes beforehand, we end up changing it. I know that's happened a couple times when
It has happened.
When Jake was still around, and it's not led to bad episodes by any means. It just sometimes we have to shift gears a little bit. My memory sucks. I'm terrible at remembering things, and Kathy will attest to that.
Yeah.
Very, very much so. And it's bad because I don't do it on purpose. There's a lot of times I'll have people text me, especially when it comes to family members, like my parents or my brothers or anyone else. They'll text me and I'll read it, and I get busy with other things. The next thing you know, I completely forget that they even messaged me until I happen to go back hours later, or there's been times it's been days later, and I see the message and oh shit. Yes. So,
did you get that text I sent you? Oh, it didn't go through. Here's
I
what I
had
sent.
it typed in there.
Send. Like, yeah. No,
send.
that's exactly what you do. That's exactly, especially when it's something important. You're like, you didn't answer me. I'm like, yeah, I did. Oh, it didn't send. Hang on.
Oh,
I got an
damn.
error message. I am also lying. Oh shit, I shouldn't have sent that.
Wrong box.
Yeah.
No, I'm similar to you, Steve, where I tend to do better under pressure.
Yeah.
And I had, my story leaders told me the same thing. It's weird because I hate the stress that comes with it.
With what?
With being under pressure.
Yeah.
Like that. And it's for some reason it kicks me into another gear that I'm able to get things done. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's not always the best end result in some instances, more so like at work. But I know for me, I get caught up in the whirlwind of things that are going on, and it's not so much procrastination that things just get left behind.
So yeah, it's between forgetting, or I think when it comes to procrastination, especially with like projects or things like that, the biggest thing that gets in my way is the fact that I don't allocate appropriate time for it, or I didn't account for something taking longer. You know, like even like with this show, you know, I was like, oh, I got the videos, I got all this stuff, and then it's like, all right, typed it all up, and you're like, you know, I should probably check and make sure that they can hear what Greg is saying. And I'm like, all right, so we do it. It's like planning on starting around 7:30, 7:35, and it's like 7:25, and I do it, I record it, and I'm like, nope, doesn't work. So now all of a sudden it's like, well, shit, now I got to figure out how to do this. Now I have Sean standing in the garage with a microphone up against the laptop. Hopefully you guys could hear it. It sounds like you could. We got it. But I feel like sometimes it's everything's squared away, but you've maybe not put the final touches even on it, and then something is wrong. And the fact that you weren't prepared for that. And I think that happens a lot of times in like business, especially too. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about, if you have to give a presentation and you're like, oh, everything's great, everything's cool. It's like, I forgot to charge my laptop, or you know what I mean? Like I forgot this, or I forgot to check and make sure that the PowerPoint do people still use PowerPoint?
Yes.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. Yes.
If I ever get out of the cigar industry, I am fucked, because I haven't used Windows whatever we're on in the last 8 years. So they better have Macs.
I'll help you out.
I'm right there with you. You know, we use some of those things, but in regards to knowledge and abilities to do other jobs, but if I were to ever get out of somewhere in the grocery retail world and to do something else, I mean, I spent 15 years doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's what I know. It's in
We're
my
still
blood.
on XP, right? Windows XP.
I think it's ME now. No,
I don't know.
too far back. Okay.
Windows 95 was actually really solid operating system that I feel like that they have just improved just to make more money. I'm going to call out, it's not Bill Gates anymore, but it's the same thing. I just think that they just put out new products to put out new products.
Here, Windows 95
just never, like it was
I just started
perfect.
thinking dial-up.
That was before dial-up.
It was before dial-up.
Ray Cheshire says it's how people are wired. He says I'm going to throw it up on the screen here, actually. You know, he says, I have never been able to put things off. I always needed to get shit done, almost to the point of obsession. And I think that is something that is the way things are wired. And I think, Nate, you were talking about that. When I say I'm walking a fine line, there's certain things that, again, I think that when there's a lot on the table, there's a lot that, you know, writing on it. As an adult, I have been able to get better at allowing appropriate time and effort into stuff, especially when there's moving parts or there's other people involved.
That's something
When
that I
it's shit
struggle
like-
with sometimes.
Is it like
Yeah.
when it's stuff with just me, like Jonathan Herring, you know, he's pretty last minute. He says the pressure motivates me. There is a little bit of that stuff I like about the procrastination sometimes, that, you know, I feel like I do my best work under pressure. No, that's you saying that you procrastinate typically. That's not like because like the game is on your shoulders. You
I
know
like
what
the
mean? It's
adrenaline rush.
yeah, that's different than procrastinating. I feel like the pressure, but I'm with you, Jonathan.
Like,
I've
the
used
quarterback
that.
doesn't wait until 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter to finally start playing.
Yeah, if you would have scored more points throughout the game, you would have been fine.
Yeah.
You don't just like do it. Sometimes I feel like they do. Tom Brady, I feel like does that.
See, I'm much more of a planner.
Yeah, you are.
So like when I was in school, not very often did I have homework because I got homework done in class. Like you're talking about math class, you know, so I'd be in math class and we'd go over the homework from the day before, and then we'd learn something new. Teacher would hand out the homework. I'd sit there and I'd finish the math homework in class.
Or get as much done as you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't very often I had homework. Most of the time that I had homework is if I was having to do research papers. But even when I did research papers, especially in college, I would pick a topic, and, you know, depending on if it had to be a 1-page paper, a 10-page paper, whatever it was, you know, I'm sitting there trying to make an outline of my paper and then filling all that stuff in to expand it, and then and I'm working on it every single day. So that way I have enough time to go back, review it, make sure it all sounds right. There's not a paragraph in there that just has absolutely nothing to do with the paper.
I recall correctly, I still got a B on that paper.
Okay.
And again, I graduated. All right, back off.
I did too.
Yeah, with sociology degree, whatever that is.
No, yeah, I've always been much more like, I want to get it done
Yeah.
as soon as I can get it done, especially in my job today.
At the cigar shop.
No,
Oh,
no, in the energy,
you're part-time work at the cigar shop.
no, in the energy industry.
Yeah.
Every single request that I get, there's a due date to it. There's they need their pricing, our bid on a certain day.
Yeah.
And so like sometimes I'll get a pricing request and they're like, hey, we need to have bids for this customer next week.
Yeah.
Cool. Depending on the circumstances, I might be able to have pricing for you tomorrow or on Friday. Now it may not be due until, say next Wednesday, but if I have everything wrapped up today, I'll submit that bid for Wednesday.
Yeah.
So that way it is out of my inbox. I don't have to worry about it because my personal goal when it comes to managing my inbox of work is at the end of the day, I want as little in that inbox as possible.
Yeah.
I want as much stuff completed and out of the way so that way I'm not worrying about it. And, because I don't know what might transpire between now and then.
No,
I don't know if something's going to happen to where I have to take time off.
Everything you're saying is extremely efficient and smart. Like if you had to choose between planning or procrastinating, you are spot on. Like I don't think like Jonathan Herring out there, like I strive under pressure. It's like, no, you're a procrastinator. Like you just don't plan. And I feel like if you get in these good habits that you're talking about, and I hope people are taking notes. I'm gonna have to listen back so I can take notes. But I feel like it's good to write things down. It's good to do the outlines. It's good to do all these things. I think when it comes down to it, are you a procrastinator or a planner? Between or whatever, which would you prefer? I truly think everyone, if they were wired a certain way, like Ray Cheshire out there, I mean, if you could choose, planning is so much easier. Like it's so much smarter. You know what I mean? Because then it's like you're just like, oh, I need to get this done. Well, I'm 5 days away. I got plenty of time. I'll do that on day, tomorrow. I'm going to do it tomorrow. As opposed to some of us that don't plan that far in advance. And all of a sudden it's like, well, oh, I need to do this, and this. I'll do that on hour 12 in the next 24 hours. Like it's extremely stressful. If I could choose, I think I would plan more things like that. I find myself planning things. Maybe that was an issue going back to even my previous career. There are certain things when I'm not interested in it, I can't engage fully. When I'm interested in it, like when we created, so we do, for those not familiar with Tinderbox at Easton, we've been doing it now, and unfortunately the last couple of years we've had some hiccups, and I think this year it'll be much the same with COVID and where we're at on that. But we do a annual event, and those are those things that it's like preparing for the big game. I'm all in. Like I spreadsheet, it's calling in advance, it's doing all this stuff. But then there was that hybrid of the year 7, I think, when we had been
2 years
shut
ago.
down. Yeah, we've been shut down, and then we're like waiting on paperwork from the fire department, making sure that we can do this whole thing. And it was like we were waiting. We actually were past due for that. It was a March 16th event that year, something like that.
You got approval 6 weeks
We
before?
got 4 weeks. We had like had kind of everything in the wings, and then we finally get approval, and then there I was, oddly enough, making phone calls at a pub, but I was making sure everything was covered, and I was on the phone for about 2 hours, and it was kind of that combination. It was like I had a lot of the legwork done, but then when we were finally like, we're not going to do it, and then we get approval. Now it's like I feel like all those years of practicing I call it practicing procrastination paid off, because you planners out there would have just been like, well, I don't know what to do, because it's like it's 4 weeks away. Let's just not do it. I'm like, no, I got this. Hang on, I'll take another pint. I'm going to be outside on the phone. And it happened. I mean, we sold out. I'm just going to throw it out there.
No, so I mean,
huge success.
What I was thinking about.
Thank you.
Is like there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things in my personal life that my wife and I plan for. Take financials, for example. Like we plan for stuff.
Also extremely smart.
Yeah. We plan.
Everyone get out the notepad.
Like we have a set of goals. We plan for stuff. We work towards those goals. Didn't
you train, like you taught a class,
yes.
right?
Yes.
God.
Yeah.
It's kind of annoying how like efficient you are.
Okay. Sorry. I apologize.
Agreed.
Nerd. Sean,
Yeah. But
financially
Nerd
stable
alert.
nerd. I hate you.
but no, like my wife and I will plan for stuff, and then if all of a sudden something happens and it's an emergency, like because we've planned for things, we can cover that emergency. So like last year when the engine in my car was about ready to blow up, I was able to go to the garage of one of our customers at the Tinderbox,
Right.
who's got a garage, and
Autorama in Columbus.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was able to drop my car off, and he's like, "Yeah, I can, get the same motor out of another car and swap it out for you. This is how much it's going to cost." I'm like, "Cool. Here's the check." And sometimes we'll sit there and if my wife and I have issues with any of our cars, I sit there and all of a sudden it's like, "Ah, shit, now we got to take care of this with the car, or this, we got to get a fuel pump in this car, or we had to get a valve cover and thermostat replaced and all this stuff." And I'm stressing about it because I hate having car issues. I hate spending money on car problems. But then my wife is like, "Yeah, guess what? We can have that done every day for the next month."
Up on the screen, I just threw up there from his wife. She writes, his wife is not as efficient.
She is not as efficient, but when it comes to like financial stuff, she's actually a better planner than I am.
I think it helps out. I'm on the other side of it where you have.
She's an excellent saver. Yes, she is.
I think that with you being able to drop that down on a car that you need to do that with, like get an engine replaced. I'm on the other side of the spectrum that for the most part, I try to budget things in a different light, not always the smartest way to do it. And I know for some people, like a car is a point A to point B. Obviously for me, I love my car and everything else. And I am a warranty guy. I am a guy that, granted, I have a car payment. You don't. So that probably also helps save, where I'm spending like $400 a month on my car. And you're like, I haven't had a car payment
since 2011.
All right. So that's my point. So for me, if my engine goes out tomorrow, like I'm just like, hey, Jermaine Cadillac, I need help, and it's covered. So I think there's different ways you can do it. That's where I will say is that there's no right way to do it, but I think planning. So that'd be another form of planning for me. Is like I plan in advance to a point that I've got the warranty, as opposed to some people like hell. I'm getting a new TV delivered because my TV was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And
due for a new one.
Solid. Well, I tried to replace the bulb again, and for those out there, it's a Sony, man. It's SXRD. It was the DLP. It was the first like 1080p's out there in like 2005. The thing was fucking $2,000.
Probably weighs 2,000 pounds.
No, it's not that heavy. It's not like I had a Trinitron before that. The 36 inch
what?
Trinitron.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, so yeah, I bought a new TV. I got the 5-year warranty. It was like an extra $200 on it. But I'm like, you know what? I don't know what TVs are like right now. But for the next 5 years, if something goes out, I don't have to buy another TV. Where some people are like, oh, I'll just buy a $300 TV. I'm like, I clearly hold on to things longer than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, this TV will probably last me. I'm about to turn 40. I'm like, I'm going to have this until I'm 50 at least. And if anyone doesn't like the TV, like if Liz doesn't like it or anything like that, it's like, fine, you buy a TV.
I got a great TV
I'll
story.
be outside with my Sony.
I got a great TV story for you because my mom is watching the podcast.
Okay.
And she can back me up on this story because this was her. 1994, March Madness, men's Final Four.
Okay.
Halftime of the first Final Four game, our TV goes out. And my mom's like, all right, Nate, you just stay here. I'll be back in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
She gets in her pickup truck, drives to the store, buys a 35-inch Sony. And that was, one where it's like, yeah, the screen's 35 inches, but it's also 35 inches deep, too.
Oh, yeah.
She carries it in the house herself and has it.
It's just adrenaline at that point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She has it hooked up at the
like
start
when
of the
mom, like when a mom, picks up the back end of a car that's on top of their kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she had it hooked up at the start of the second half.
Jonathan Aaron, I got a great TV story. Never been good.
that
That was a good. That was a good TV story.
Yeah. TV goes out during the Final Four. She goes, buys a new TV, carries it in, has it set up at the start of the second half of the ball game. Because she loves college basketball that much.
I think that is so relative to today because I feel like kids today will probably get to the point like if their remote stops working, they're like, well, I guess I'm going to go do something else. It's just like,
No,
we're not
nowadays,
watching
if
TV.
the remote goes out, they go buy a new TV.
Yeah, that's true. Not me,
Find out
though,
it's a
not me.
universal remote.
It's like all you had to do was go put a battery in the old remote. Like, shit.
I was upset that like the ball by order said it was like a OEM, as original part. Like that's where I'm at with my 15-year-old TV. Where I'm like, I'm looking on
They
Amazon.
still
I'm like,
make parts
OEM.
for it?
Yeah, it said it was, and it got here, and it clearly it wasn't. So I sent it back.
I think I kind of going back to the whole planning and procrastinating piece.
Oh, do we have a topic?
Do we? Is
Go
that
ahead,
the topic?
go
We've
ahead.
been talking about it.
Oh,
don't know what
okay.
you've been
I
doing.
know.
Listening. I can be a planner as well. And I actually, like you, Steve, when it's something that I'm really passionate about and I love, and you get fully involved and dove into it, you take a different level of pride in it.
Yeah.
And so I found myself planning even more and doing all kinds of research and, crunching numbers and, timelines and things like that, the spreadsheets like you have, and I'm over here, like I'm doing it mentally as far as crunching numbers, remembering where I found this, where I did this, and how much is this going to be, and what's the time frame for that, and kind of coordinate it all.
Yeah.
When I first went down to the Bourbon Trail, I planned out where we would go as far as the distilleries, and I mapped it out and planned. We did 2 different days, but we did 4 distilleries in a day, each day.
Sufficient.
And luckily
It's a lot of alcohol.
it is.
Were you
They're
driving?
small.
Or were you
I was not.
responsible?
Yeah, we had a DD. And the friends that I was staying with, they live 15, 20 minutes from Four Roses.
Yeah.
So the first day we hit Four Roses, and then if we mapped it out and you took a separate road, we hit Four Roses, Wild Turkey, Buffalo Trace, and Woodford all on the same trip, and they were all 15 minutes apart as far as driving wise. So we booked the tours in advance at specific timelines, taking all the drive time into account. Had all of it planned for each day going into it, and it was kind of tight. But we got to see a lot of different things at the same time, and again, that's something I was really passionate about, and I still am. But that, I think, for a lot of people, plays a big role into the whole planning piece. And for a lot of people who are procrastinators, I think they may, and I could be wrong, they may have a side of them that if it is something that they're really, truly passionate about and have a real desire for, then they'll take that time aside to really plan it out and make it work to what they want and how they want it.
Are you guys the kind of people that plan vacation, like every day of your vacation? Do you guys have a plan for every day?
No, I'm not.
Kind of depends on what it is.
Okay.
My types of
Bourbon
vacations
Trail makes
anyway.
sense.
Yeah.
Bourbon Trail, absolutely. And I'm actually going down on the 18th and 19th, and unfortunately, there's very few places that are open for tours, and if they are, they're not accepting bigger groups. We have like 6 people in our group, and AJ, who's been on AJ Kazmierzak, it's for his birthday. Excited to go down, and it's like, I haven't been to this distillery. Let's go to this one, and they're like, none of those places are doing tours, or they are doing tours like Buffalo Trace. I've never been. I want to go. I love their stuff. They have like 5 tours all booked. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. I don't plan, and my vacations in the recent years are like all inclusives. That's my type of vacation. And it even like when I go down with a group and you have like this, I went down 2 years in a row with my old roommate Connor and his friends from Cleveland. And it was like the first year, it's like there's this, out of like 15 people, there were like 5 or 6 planners. And they're like, okay, so like we'll go on this excursion, we'll go on this excursion. And like we went along with them for a couple of them. they were fine and all that stuff. The following year, they're like booking all this stuff, and we're like, we'll see you when you get back to the resort. Like we're good. I'm gonna sit by this pool this day. And tomorrow I walk by this pool. I'm gonna be over there tomorrow. And then the beach we haven't even seen yet. That's day 3. Like that's my planning, right? The first time I took an all-inclusive, we stopped naming days after Margarita Tuesday. And that's because myself and one of the 6 at the time didn't make it to dinner. Like they had planned that we went to the steak restaurant, and we're like all looking forward to it. I was in a world of hurt, man. We it was a Sunday through Saturday thing, and Tuesday was the last day we stopped naming drink days. So planning on when it comes to vacations, don't plan drink days.
I think for me, it kind of depends on the vacation.
Yeah.
Every year, Kathy's family, we go down to Sunset Beach for a week. Really, the only 2 things we plan are we didn't really plan it as much this year, but the previous year we planned kind of what we were going to have for dinner most of the nights, and then we would make a grocery trip once and buy it all, and we had it, and then we would make the food, those nights, and that was our dinner. We'd have some leftovers. But the only other thing we really planned was what time are we going to the beach?
Yeah.
And then we just kind of wung it whenever we decided to go back. But when I went out to San Francisco to visit 2 of my friends from college, I did plan some things in advance, partially because I had to. I was there it was a long weekend. I flew out early Friday morning, and it was about 7:00 their time when I finally landed. So we had that Friday through flying back that Monday morning.
Yeah.
And I booked on that Friday tours out to Alcatraz, and you have to book that out 3-4 months in advance.
Well, I think again, there's that procrastination. If you we'll get out there, we'll figure it out, and then you have limited options because you didn't plan. I understand.
Right.
That. Yeah.
So we did that, and then we decided to do on Saturday. We were going to do. We went out to Sonoma County and hit up a few wineries. Some of those we planned kind of in advance, but the majority of them we kind of just wung it, just because of proximity, and one of them my friends had memberships to, so that helped out a lot as well.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it was just kind of some sightseeing, some things that I wanted to see and check out and go do, and just kind of wung it beyond that. But there were some things that I planned, and I think it just kind of
is that the right?
I love winging.
Yeah.
Wung it?
Wung it? Is it
winging it?
But you can stick with
Is it wing? We were
Winged it?
winging it.
What's the past tense of winging?
Winging is already past tense.
The winging
No,
is
winging
current.
is
Is present.
active.
I prefer wung it.
Wanged.
I
was gonna
wunged
say,
it.
Don't say wanged.
I wunged it.
That doesn't sound.
I wunged it.
No. No.
But
I think
Ray
You had
Chester
such
is
a good-
wung
you
a
had
word.
Such a good story, and then
Ray, yes, it is in my language.
Oh, God.
Now we got Ray Chester as wung a word.
It is. That's
You
Probably
got
in
us caught
Vietnam
up.
it is.
that's why I'm in grocery retail. Not smart enough to do much
We
else.
winged it. We winged it.
What's that?
Yeah, you said that.
Wung it.
Winged.
Winged.
You
Okay.
say whatever you want, man.
All right. See, for me, it's kind of like what you said. It depends on the type of trip.
Depends on what part of Ohio you're from.
Whether you're from NWO or Southern Ohio. Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
No, from I
Played it by ear.
kind of agree. It does depend on the kind of trip you're taking.
Jess says you played it by ear. Just say that.
I wung it.
All right.
So like
I'm sticking to it.
when Jess and I went down to Florida for our honeymoon, like there was only one day that we had something planned, and that was the day that we went to Orlando because she wanted to go to Disney.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like we had that planned, but as far as the rest of the trip, it was more just, all right, what are we doing today? We going to the beach? We hanging out inside? We going to cigar shops?
Kind of a day by day plan.
Yeah, but then every year
And you
when
always went to a cigar shop.
we were in Florida. So.
I'm just,
Yeah, well, this year when we were trying to plan out a vacation, she had 2 destinations in mind, and I'm sitting there going, okay, how many cigar shops are in each one of these destinations? And sitting there looking like, all right, this one's got a really nice cigar bar. Doesn't open until 8:00 p.m. No, not going there. And then all of a sudden she's like, well, it turns out I have a friend from college that's got a Airbnb condo in Miami. And I'm like, that sounds like more fun
There
because
you go.
I will sit there and go to a cigar shop or, Eric's down in that area. Like I can go visit him down there, just work that out. And
See,
like,
you're in a different.
but like if we go to the Rolex,
blessed relationship, now that Liz and I have been together for 2 years, it's like I would absolutely just vacation next year, go back to Cuba. That doesn't fit anymore, unfortunately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you were just down there. I'm like, yeah.
Your
I
point
wanna
is,
go. It's like where do we want to go on vacation? I was like, Miami is great because I can just go visit a handful of people that I know down there and go to their factories or the Miami factories or go to their warehouse and just smoke cigars. I agree with you. I think that's the big difference for me is that when you go to like planning, like we'll stick on vacation for just one more moment, when it's something that I want to do, absolutely planning it. When someone else is doing something or like plan, like we used to take family vacations and I was going to go this year because it's been a while, but Door County in Wisconsin, and it's that peninsula off, Green Bay, and that's the little peninsula there. And, when we went with family and like they're planning on like which town to go into to go antiquing, I'm extremely annoyed and not like why are we planning this? I'd rather just sit by the lake. Now, if it was like the one year we went like parasailing, I'm like, let's go do this. Like, why are you like just put on your shoes? Let's go. Like, we're gonna be late. You know what I mean? I'm all for it. So I think there's a little bit of that vested interest in selfishness that I have when it comes to planning. It's
well, like when we
I want to do.
When we would go to Lexington for the Rolex 3-day show every year, which has nothing to do with watches. It's a 3-day horse competition. And so we know
it just works with horses, correct?
Yes, my
Okay.
wife owns
Horse
a horse.
watches. Yeah,
she was a
Horse watches.
She was a Congress champ
Which hoof
when
does it
she
go
was
on?
younger. For those of you who don't know what the All American Quarter Horse Congress is the largest single breed horse show in the world. Typically held right here in Columbus, Ohio, the first 3 weeks of October. Got canceled this year. Thank you, COVID. Fuck off.
Yeah. Probably Trump's fault.
Or to wine.
Saw it on CNN.
But no, when we would go down there for that, when we go down there for that 3-day show, it's like we know, okay, we're gonna go down on Thursday. Friday, we're gonna go to the arena. We're gonna be there pretty much all day, most of the day. Even though for me that's the most boring day because it's dressage. We're gonna go there. Dressage is where they're on the horse and
that's what you put on your date at.
No, they do the fancy footwork with the horse.
Corsage.
Corsage.
Okay, I've been saying that wrong.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Corsage. Is it
I
grissage?
just wung it, when I was.
But no, so
Like
I mean, we knew each of the 3
massage?
days. We're gonna get up, we're gonna go to breakfast, and we would always go to the same place for breakfast because amazing food down in Lexington. But then we would go to the arena, spend pretty much all day there until whatever event that day was done. Go back to our Airbnb, change, get ready for dinner, and then just walk around the corner down the street or whatever to where we were going to eat for dinner. And I mean, so we knew where we were going to be during the day. It was just then at night, like, do we want to go do something else? Do we want to, go see this distillery nearby or this local brewery? Do we want to visit sites or, what do we want to do? And I'm like,
figuring out.
Let's go to dinner. And then I'm going to go sit on the patio, smoke a cigar and drink some of this fine craft beer from local.
So for those listening on audio, if you guys are free or listening back on the video, I highly encourage you to, if you're bored or you're free on a Wednesday night, the comments right now, we got about 20 some people watching at this point in the show.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Yes. But I like the interaction, excuse me, between the viewers. Ray Cheshire, they're getting, we know some of these people. Are you watching these comments?
Oh, yeah. Fuck off, Ray.
It's
morning where his watches would be more interesting. And Jonathan Herring, right after that first Trump mentioned, cheers. Like, this is sometimes I mean, maybe people are taking away from it. Like I said, I learned from Nate a lot and Dustin as well. But like Nate is a level of planning and budgeting that I would love to be. I try to get better at it, and I try to surround myself with people that have skills that I don't have, because hopefully through some level of osmosis, it bleeds into me. I don't think that's one of them, but I'm trying to get better at it.
We can have a sit down.
We've had plenty of those. Yeah, I just the comment is the comment section is fun. Chad Smith, I think he said he's first time listener. He said this is a kick-ass podcast.
Appreciate
I don't know
it.
if you have a frame of reference on other podcasts, but I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
This is the the Beyond the BS. This is the part 2. I think when it comes down, just to before we go on to the second part that I wanted to talk about with the the anniversaries and the benchmarks and everything else.
Yeah.
I think with the planning, and I agree with Jonathan Herring when he was saying that on the feed, that you strive under pressure. I found myself that I've gotten better. I value it to a point that I procrastinated, just because when shit is hitting the fan, I have the level of critical thinking combined with doing things under pressure. That's not encouraging procrastinating, but the fact that I procrastinated and I was able to succeed in certain things when I wasn't as prepared, whether that time was by choice, but when it's not by choice, I think that sometimes people will buckle when all they are doing is planning. And then when you're faced with an obstacle last minute, you don't know how to do it, and you
freeze,
you
or lock up.
Yeah, deer in the headlights, because it's like, no, it's not. It's like when we had Eric Goldhaber on here, and it's like when we were in Doug as well.
I remember that.
So it's one of those things. It's like IT people are probably some of the most, in my opinion. I a lot of friends that are in IT, and we strive on it. And during like the quarantine and everything, there was something that we take so many things for granted when it comes to that. But when your internet goes out, or when something goes out, it's like, well, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. Like I'm done, and that's trickled down to now. I think with kids, it's like your iPhone, is broken, and you lose your shit.
Or you have the people that if Facebook goes down for 20 minutes, they're calling 911 because they don't know what the fuck to do.
But I think sometimes it's like when you plan, you're like, no, like I think that's and I'm not talking bad about IT people. It's one of those things, like IT people that I'm friends with, and Eric Goldhaber, like I said, he's a good friend of mine, and he's very, very good at what he does.
Yes.
Very, very good. But even talking to him about sometimes with IT stuff, with the tech stuff, it's very frustrating when I'm saying, well, what if this happens? That's my planning. It's like, well, like, because I have a little bit of that thinking process. I'm like, what if this happens? Like, it won't. I'm like, that's not an answer that I'm okay with. And he's like, well, just call me if it does. And I'm like, that's also not an answer that I'm okay with, because it's like, what if this happens? It's like, it's with business, and when retail is a great example. It's like, if your credit card machine goes down nowadays, like, no one carries cash. So it's like, if you're running a retail, or if you're doing like e-commerce, and that's even more probably prevalent now. If e-commerce, if your credit card processing goes down, you are losing money, you're bleeding out, like, you need to get it done. So what's the fail safe? And they're like, oh, we have this and this. I'm like, well, what if the third fail safe fails? And they're like, it won't. I'm like, I'm not okay with that. So I think that there's a little bit of when you are used to procrastinating, and that pressure that some people say they thrive on, it almost starts this mentality, at least it did for me, that, well, what if I'm in my college roommate's room and my paper's due in 6 hours, and I walk in there and his computer's not working? It's like, I need to know where the next computer is. I need to know,
the library.
Is there a computer lab? Yeah, library. Yeah.
The reason my paper is handwritten is because I really wanted to put my thought into it.
Don't hit it with an eraser.
See, I couldn't do that with papers.
You got a question? Hey, Sean, do you know?
All right.
Turn on the mic there.
We got a question from the audience. So the fourth mute button over. Yep.
And you may need to turn down the volume on the four, because I turned it up for that. So turn it down to like 5 on the fourth.
Which one? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that thing, right? Pull it down.
Yeah, slide it down a little bit.
To 5. Yeah, it was all the way up for Greg's
And
thing.
just keep an eye on the level on the right.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, thanks. So for me, I work in. Well, I originally. Oh yeah, it probably helps to have it close to my face, right?
Turn the blue to you.
See, I got to get it together already. Same. I know for me, I work in banking, but I'm an enterprise training specialist. So everything is like critical thinking on the spot. One of the things that I'd ask all of you, have you ever heard of the terminology called DISC?
Yeah.
DISC learning, right? So it's those different
Personality
attributes,
Absolutely.
right? Myers-Briggs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
We've talked about it before on the podcast, actually. Yeah.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Color code.
Yeah. So yeah, color coding, the way you process, but it also has a lot to do with like if you're egotistical, if you're sensory, different things. Those all play into how you process and plan, whether you're, you know what, I'm just going to do it, or I need to actually plan it out. And you'll see like C's are more, man, I've really got to like, I've got a good metric and I've got to work my way down.
Structure.
But then if you deal with like an I, nah, we're just going to go.
Yeah.
We're going to figure it out as
We're
we
gonna roll
go.
with it.
The question that I have for all of you at this point would be this: as when you are doing things off the spurt, let's say for you, when you're having to react that way, what kind of reaction do you have when it falls outside of your planned expectation?
That's a great question. So,
Especially for Nate, who's
the
a planner.
this thing
I'm
driver.
assuming you're a C.
So yeah.
No offense.
So he studied. I love it. So driver, influencer, steady and compliant is what you're dealing with. And he classified you. So, and there's also for those, and maybe we revisit this with a guest in the future. But basically, you, my understanding, you have a natural and an adapted, right? Or like basically like your normal state of the disc, and then you also have your work or adapted. Yeah. So Nate, that's a great question. He was looking at you. For those that didn't, he was talking to Nate. You said he was a C.
He comes off like maybe a CD or maybe a C.
Yeah.
All right. So
All right.
to answer that, I'll actually give you the most recent example that happened at work. One of my sales-
Diana says, I like this dude, by the way. That's Jake, right?
Jake.
Yeah. Jake.
So
From
back
State
in
Farm.
July, one of my sales reps says, "Hey, here's this spreadsheet. I got a feeling that this RFP, which stands for request for pricing, is going to come out in August. So here it is in July. Like, let's get ahead of this, make sure everything's in the system. You know, let's get what we need." I'm like, cool. So I sit there and I scrub through this Excel sheet that's got 10 tabs on it, and it's over 1,100 accounts. And I sit there and I spend, the better part of a week doing all my other shit, but then also scrubbing through this and be like, okay, here's all the accounts that are not in our system. And in order to be able to put those in our system, I need to have the service address for each of these accounts.
Okay.
He's like, all right. And so we just wait. We have some meetings about it. And then finally, August, the request comes through. I'm like, cool. I still need the addresses for all these accounts that I asked you for a month ago.
Yeah.
Like, I still need these. He's like, all right. And then a week goes by, and I'm like, hey, what are we doing? Are we going to include these in our pricing, or are we not? Like, what's going on? He's like, I think we're just going to leave them out. All right, awesome. And then Wednesday comes. The pricing is due on Friday. Wednesday comes, and they say, and it's 4:45. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, just make up an address. Put all these accounts in the system and just make up an address. I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, I've been asking for this information for over a month.
So he loses his shit is the answer.
Yes, I absolutely lose my shit.
You could have just said that.
Because I've been
I appreciate
asking
the
for
story,
this,
but I feel like you could have just said, I lose my shit.
I've been asking for this information for over a
I
month,
throw
and you wait
things.
until a day before it's due.
How many weeks ago was this?
This was last month.
How many things got broke in you
Nothing
losing your
got
shit?
broken.
How
Nothing got
upset
broken.
are
Damn it.
you still currently about this?
I wasn't until brought up. But no.
So
I mean,
review lose shit.
but no.
Yeah.
So I had to sit there and
Jesus.
Nate
bust my
loses shit.
ass and
Continue
spend a
to
lot of
lose
overtime
his shit.
to get all this stuff in there.
Did you get paid for the overtime?
Yes.
Must be nice.
Yeah.
I hope you guys mess up more often.
But
laugh all the way to the bank, get pissed all the way to the bank.
I miss
Excuse me.
overtime.
But no, it's like, can I
Yeah.
can I do this last minute? Yes, I can. Everything works more smoothly if I just have all the information ahead of time. So that way I know everything's included, everything's right. I mean, I was actually submitting requests to have the pricing come in 2 days early. So that way we could look at it and see if anything was wrong and fix anything then. And then it was after that all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we want to, I know we said this last week, but now we're changing what we're going to do. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get it done. But next time I ask for the information, just give me the information. Like, we need this. I told you we needed it. And it's not necessarily all on me. It's like, you're the sales rep. You're the person talking to the customer. Either do your job or get them to do theirs. Like, I'm going to do mine. You give me all the information, I'm going to do my job. But get off your ass and help me help you, for crying out loud.
Proceeds to lose shit.
Next.
Was that just for Nate?
No, he said all three
Jake,
of
or
us.
for
You
all three?
fuckers answer two.
Okay.
I forget the question.
So I
kind of feel like I know where you're coming from.
I think
We
if-
got to get
if-
Jake on this podcast. Jake just moved in across the street.
I feel like
Feeling he's going to be
Jake's,
over here on Wednesday nights.
Jake's question is in regards to what's your mindset or planning per se for when
Things
theoretically
don't go well.
shit hits the fan and you have to either change your course or things are thrown at you to have to deal with on the fly. For me, that's a daily basis. Working in grocery retail management, in the inner city, things happen and change with the drop of a dime. Sometimes before the dime even hits the floor. And we're also expected to manage and maintain the store itself. For me, it's a lot of last second trying to figure some things out, especially recently.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. Within the last 4 days, we've had 4 full-time employees go on leaves of absences unexpectedly. So 3 of those 4 were in the same department, which really cripples us because it was one person who's been around forever, who's our normal first person in running registers. And the other one is our consistent closer, who is the last person there and closes on the store, works the front end. And so finding those 2 shifts are incredibly difficult because you have a lot of employees that you have to work around with availability issues and constraints and things like that. So there's been a lot of things that we've had to work around with that piece. You throw that curveball into it, then you have customers who are upset when you only have 2 registers open on a Friday evening and your lines are all the way back to the meat department at the back of the store, but there's not really anything that you can do about it because you've
But that's because of the
exhausted.
6-foot social distancing, right?
Oh, at that point, it doesn't fucking matter.
So you just adapt. You roll with it.
Yeah, we just a lot of times, more times than not, we have to adapt and roll with it, as you said, Steve. We do try to plan as much as possible, especially when it comes to sales plans and scheduling in advance. But a lot of times, even when we schedule in advance, that doesn't necessarily always pan out.
Yeah.
New hires, again, we had 2 new hires that were actually doing really well in a department that we really truly needed the help, and their background checks came back that we had to let them go. So now we're short an extra 40 hours in a department that we desperately need, and it's a scramble to try to get that done. And so us as managers, we're trying to dive in and changes us what's on sale today. Sirloin steaks are on sale today.
Seriously?
And grapes.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Nice.
$6.99 a pound, I think. Sirloin?
So to answer the question too, I don't know. I with that combination of planning and procrastination, when things don't go well, and I get the question with the high C personality. I flirt between a couple different personality, DISC. So my adapted is typically going to be a D driver, and I have a little bit of that in the natural, but as well, it's just over time. I think I think age helps with some of this stuff, and it doesn't always. I mean, sometimes you really stick with it. You know what I mean? With whatever your personality, you're wired a certain way.
You think age or experiences?
Both, honestly.
Okay.
I think both. We talked about it a year or two ago. There was, I'll bring up the example, probably one of the most in recent years. There's two, right? One is with in the cigar industry, you know, just like everyone else, when COVID hit, and in Ohio, for those that don't know, Ohio was one of the states, you know, that basically shut down almost everything. So now it's all right. So I, you know, got a small staff. We're a small business, and we didn't know how to adapt to it. So I basically there's that procrastination mentality, in a sense that it's like, okay, well, we got to do something. I don't know what it is because I'm not prepared at all. That's where I joke about the fact that procrastinating sometimes built a skill set that I didn't realize it was doing. Thankfully, again, I graduated college and was able to pay it off in 10 years, which is fantastic. When COVID hit, it was like, okay, so what do we do? I don't want to go on an unemployment. I want to make sure that Brian, who owns the shop, I don't want to make him feel like he has to carry this and basically break his business savings or even personal savings to not put me as the only other full-time employee on unemployment. And so how do I prove my worth? And that's where, you know, Nate was alluding to earlier, and we talked about on previous episodes. We got creative. I basically came in and I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I'll do this, and this. I'll monitor. I'll put it all out there on social media. We had built up the Bourbon and BS community page, and it started in October, and we were able to scrape by in April. We didn't turn the lights on. It was him and I. I was able to walk into the shop and say, okay, and I'd write it all down. I got these people on Facebook Messenger. I got these people on Instagram Messenger. I have these emails coming in, and we need to ship out, 8 packages. I have these 4 spots over in New Albany that I can drop off. And then also, before you moved in across the street, this was like in April, it looked like a drug house because I live this close to the shop that it's like, all right, so if I know you and I trust you, I can tell you where I live. You tell me between, day to day, I'll be home 2 to 5, and you can come by, just text me when you're outside. I'll bring out what you bought. And if you have cash, you can give me cash, and we'll bring it in the next day. If you want to pay by credit card, we'll do it over the phone, and I'll give you those cigars. We scraped by. We were able to pay him, me, and pay the rent and whatever we needed to do. Scrape by. Another example of that was the Smoking 10 event, 6 or whatever, when the fire department came.
Yeah.
6.
And
you were great that year.
And it was
fantastic.
one of those things that it was, Brian's on the sales table, again, the owner of the shop, this is his baby. And I've been working for him now for 7.5 years, almost 8. And I'm always on the microphone because that was kind of like our agreement. We've known each other for a long time. And when the fire department came to shut it down because we were smoking inside the tent, we thought everything was cool. We didn't know about this. We were trying to get away with anything. We weren't hiding. This was year 6. And at that point, when they came, and I told the story after it happened, when we first kind of started this podcast, there are a lot of things you can do. And that's one is, well, fuck it, shut it down, and we'll just go home and tell it. Like we got to tell everyone that it's over. Instead, I walked up to the bar and I told Case, and I say, hey, and I was fucking shaking because we had 300 people in this tent. They already paid for it. We were halfway through the event, and it was one of those things. I was like, all right, so I delayed it and figured out what we needed to do, and that's get everyone out from underneath the tent. And luckily, it was a nice day, and so I went to the bar and I told Case, and I said, hey, in about 2 minutes, have Missy find me with a Jameson. And I started on one side of the tent, and I got on the microphone and started explaining everything, what was going on. And by the time I got to the other side of the tent and I was almost done with it, literally Missy, badass server at Fido Irish Pub and Restaurant, she's not there anymore, but she literally, like, without breaking a stride, I'm walking one way, she's walking the other, and I just like mic in hand like this, and I had my hand out. She gave me the drink, and I said, so who's going to raise a glass and still have fun today? And we killed it.
Yeah,
because it was like one of those things. It was like, And the fire marshal knew what I was doing by delaying it and all that stuff. He came up to me. He's like, all right, like we got to get everyone out from underneath the tent. And we did it. Still had this raffle. It was a killer event. And it was probably, we had people staying later at that. And the weather helped, but it was like we had people staying later and supporting both the pub and us because of the way that we handled it as a business.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that I look back and I don't know if I could do it again, but it was just like one of those things when shit's hitting the fan, it was just like, let's fucking do it.
I think,
and it built a lot of trust in our customers. And we still have customers asking now, like, so what's going on this next March? And I'm like, we don't know. And they're like, all right, well, just let us know. We'll be there. Because it was how you handle that shit.
I think for you tapped into your inner procrastinator.
Yeah.
And you, but really, like you mentioned earlier, you tend to do better under pressure, and that was one of those moments where the pressure was on, and very, very much so. And 10 event 6 was the first one that I was actually able to make it to, out of the years I've been back in Columbus.
Tough year
and
to pop your cherry, man.
Hey, but I tell you what, it was still one of my favorite 10 events that I've been to. And honestly, it's the only one I've been to. No, it's the second one I've been to.
Yeah.
But the way that you handled it was absolutely superb. And I think anyone else who was there out of the 300 people would say absolutely the same thing. If
well,
not
I think,
more so.
we did this again this year. We had an event already sold. We had about 250 tickets sold. And 5 days before the event, we had to cancel it because of the shutdown. And so we basically, I went to Scott, who owns the pub next door, talked to Brian, who owns Tinderbox. And I'm like, well, they're open. We're open still at this point. Now, granted, they got shut down restaurants that night of that Sunday, the 15th.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but we still were like, you're open. We're open. If you can give us your whole patio, we'll adapt. And if anyone wants to do it, and we still had 100 to 150 people of those 250 that came through that day, and were able to still have a good time because it was like, this is the only option. I think that's the lesson for me when it comes to planning and procrastinating. You learn from it going forward, hopefully, that you don't run into that. You learn from the lessons that happen when that shit hits the fan, and you put it on yourself by procrastinating, or it's out of your control.
You wung it.
And you wung it.
There's a difference though between in that situation.
Yeah, and Ray Chester just said, I think he wung it, Dustin.
Like you didn't procrastinate on how to handle the 10 event. Like everything was going fine. You busted your ass to get the 10 event scheduled, reps there, product there. You did everything necessary to make that event go off without a hitch. You planned your ass off to make sure it went well. And then, life threw you a curveball. So, you didn't procrastinate. Life threw you a curveball. You adapted.
Well, again, that's coming from. I agree what Dustin was saying, and I kind of agree that there's a level of when you are more of a procrastinator than you are a planner. And again, I try to walk that line between the two of them now. There is a level of there's a skill level of bullshit that you develop, and sometimes planners can do it too. But I think that the procrastinators, if you can hone that skill of bullshitting, and also combine it with a little bit of learning the lessons of planning and actually, I took a speech class in college and I got a B in that too. The reason I got a B is because
your voice.
No, that helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a B because I had sources, because you like on a speech, you gotta have you gotta have 5 sources. I would just basically try to find, and this was back in the day, I went to college between 98 and 2002. This was back when you could do a little bit of internet on the internal Ethernet network of the university, and you could get synopsis of an article. That's all I needed. And I would try to cite these sources, and the teacher saw right through it. And she's like, it was a great speech, but the sources didn't they were not accurate. And once again, it's like that paragraph I wrote, in that paper. It was like, yeah, so you mentioned sources had nothing to do with what you were talking about, but you got your point across. Like, here's a B. I'm like, works for me.
I think to your point,
Works for me.
Bees get
And
degrees
Sean
too.
wants to say something. You're right.
you go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. I'm in an aviation industry for private charter, and we're always kind of learn to
A little further away.
Yeah.
further away. Okay.
We got you
To-
turned up.
Gains up pretty high.
Okay. To expect the unexpected. And you it sounds like you had everything in sight and ready to go, and things should hit the fan.
Yeah.
And in charter and aviation, I've been doing it for over 20 years. I've learned that, and I procrastinate a lot, but it taught me to, over the years, you can plan all you want, but shit's going to always hit the fan, and how do you react?
Yeah.
And we deal with that almost on a daily basis. I mean, if a trip were to just go as planned, make our lives a lot easier. Does it happen? Yeah, but most of the time it doesn't. So good on you for doing what you did there, because you kind of have to, like you said, bullshit your way out of things sometimes, and you did. And I think that builds character as a person, and it also just you learn from that.
Yeah.
And then moving forward, you know how to handle things when shit hits a fan again, and you can take from what you had and you learn from it and go from there. But just I feel you, because I deal with it all the time. So anyway, so I want to share.
I think it's a valid point. I think this is where the planners will you have to have both. Like, again, not the procrastination part. I mean, I do not encourage the procrastination. I'm kind of making light of that I learned a lot of valuable lessons, because there were a lot of times that I haven't mentioned that I fell right on my face. You can do that planning or procrastinating. There are times where I procrastinated, did not give myself enough time, and going back to the example of like writing papers in college, it's like, all right, it's supposed to be double spaced. I'm going to do 2.3 space. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to just stretch it out a little bit. They won't know. I'm going to use
Hit that 4-page mark.
I'm going to use Courier New instead of Times New Roman, because it's a little bit bigger font. You know what I mean? It's
I do
like,
the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's way back. Like, and I know I'm not the only person that's listening right now that it's one of those things that it's
Guilty.
like, all right, use 11 point font, and I'm like, I'm using 11.2. Like, when they
12.
introduced that part, well, 12 it's too obvious, so you just inch a little bit,
But you can kind of get away with using 12, and you say,
but every time I had to do that,
12.
every time I had to do that, then it was like, okay, I'm still not gonna necessarily start the paper earlier, but I'm gonna start thinking about it earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, these are just small improvements.
I lost points on a paper because it was too long.
You would.
See, I'm like Steve. When it came to writing papers,
three
I
to 5 page
absolutely
paper,
dreaded
it's
it.
like 2 point. It's like just
3
almost
pages
3.
was a
Almost
struggle
3.
for me.
I misread the instructions. It said 5 to 6 pages, and
You wrote 57.
no, I wrote
55.
it said 5 to 6 pages, and I wrote 6 pages, and then all of a sudden I see, oh, it's double space and mine's single spaced. So
Well, it's now 6. Is now
12.
Your skill set is definitely more advantageous if you can add on the critical thinking and when shit hits the fan question that Jake had. It's like when you hit that, when you can combine, if you can be a planner and also be a critical thinker, which is a little bit more rare because of that disc personality, is that unfortunately you need to realize what personality type you are so that you can look at what you're weak at and hopefully improve it. And then the strengths, you ride those out. But if you're just a compliant or steady or an influence, if you're just an influencer or a driver, the second part of that with what I was talking about when I start planning a little bit more, when there's more people involved, there's a great book that I'll recommend. It's from Jim Ryerson. It's 100 Days of Selling. And it's literally a daily devotional that I was fortunate enough to work with and meet Jim. And it was one of those things where the first part of it, before you even got into the sales part of it, it was all about the disc personality. And one of the things that the next step beyond that is actually realizing what your personality type, who you work well with personality wise, and who you don't And there's a way to change that and grow and strengthen that. So that's where, I think I've learned a little bit more about how I've been able to, if there's more people involved, they're not at the level of maybe procrastination that I can fly by the seat of my pants sometimes, but there's other people that I need to have a little more planning. And I will say that I strive off of it. Back in the day, when Jake was a part of this podcast and we did a great job together, it was he pushed me on my looseness. He was even more loose about a lot of things. So I'm like, all of a sudden my planning kicked into high gear. I'm like, I don't understand how, another person can be looser than I am with this stuff. Like I thought I was, a procrastinator. And then it's like, and he's done very well for himself. I'm not saying bad things about him. It's just like one of those things that all of a sudden I didn't interact with someone that was similar in certain fashion, because it's like, all right, so if I'm like that, you're like that. Well, someone's got to do this. And that's where you adapt to it.
Yeah. I think I'm not too familiar with the disc.
Yeah.
As far as personality goes, I'm more known with the color code, just because that's what we've used.
They've adapted it with disc, colors, spirit animals, everything.
Yeah, it's
I haven't done the disc thing in like 4 years.
I'd be really intrigued to take a test for the disc, just to see kind of where I lie.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really beneficial, especially at work.
Yeah.
The color code that we use for work is very it's beneficial, just because it allows you to see what you are. And then I think the one thing that my company kind of faults on is letting you know what your coworkers are, your peers are in your store. So like the rest of my management team, unless the three of us had a conversation on where we were on our color code, I wouldn't know. And I would kind of have to learn it as I would go and adapt.
You have to. Yeah.
But I think
be able to evaluate people around you.
And it allows
Jake,
us
when he asked
to.
a question, he was like looking at us. He's got that on his mind. He's like, all right, so you're this, you're that, you're that. And it's like,
right. And that's where, I can gauge a person on their personality and try to kind of pinpoint what color they are or colors they are.
Can't say that anymore. It's 2020.
I know. Right. But I know, like, so for the three of us managers that are at our store now, we're actually all very identical on our color code when it comes to where we land on it, and we're actually almost the exact same.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice because we know how to interact with one another, but at the same time, it's kind of a double-edged sword because we're all the same.
You're always your mentality is like not intentionally one-upping, but you're like, well, yeah, I know you looked at this, but have you looked at this?
Well, it's not even necessarily, that's more of like a competitive kind of edge, like, oh, you didn't see this, but I did. But at the same time, it's kind of holding each other.
What color code are you?
Me? So I am about 55% blue and be about 25% white. And then red and yellow is about 10% a piece. So Jake knows exactly what I'm talking about.
You know the color coding of.
So blue, I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Yeah. So
Here, you can mic, yeah.
5'6".
So your sensory. So you got some. Oh yeah, here. This is better. All right.
Bobby Hirschman's like, wow, I'm lost. I think Bobby tuned in. We're not talking about the cigars at this point. Bobby, we're talking about, somehow we got on to the disc personality.
Cigars seem like the common ground, if anything, right?
It brings everyone together.
Yeah.
Always
and
does.
Chad Smith, sorry,
and whiskey.
Chad Smith says, what was the name of the book you mentioned earlier? It's Jim Ryerson wrote it. It's 100 Days of Selling. 100 Days of Selling is a follow-up book, but it is a daily devotional for 100 days. You read, it's one of those things when I say daily devotional, there's 100 days. You read day one, on day one, and then you put it down. Day two, you read it, and it's a cool book.
I was just going to say,
I'll share a link.
Without, and again, it's even a part of my own like character flaws. I dissect people like that because I spend most of my time in front of a class. Well, post COVID, I mean, I'm in front of 11 people on a good day, but on a call, I'm in front of 125 to 200, right?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
and I was really involved with working with our small businesses with the organization I work for. I won't name anything specific, but I'll just say I work for the largest bank in Columbus.
We
So
know.
the one at Easton is big.
Yeah.
So
Credit union.
no, definitely small scale.
Ohio.
Just kidding. I love credit unions. Like they're
Just Metro right off of East Broad.
Yeah, that's right.
No, and
also a T-Mobile store.
it's really, for me, this is really uplifting because you
They said
get
it
a
for my
good
store.
image of how people process, but usually most things are accomplished well by having diversity
Mhm.
in the approach. And I think this rounds back to what you guys are talking about with the planner versus procrastinator. The problem that I think most people still deal with is they feel like procrastination or bullshitting, let's just call it what it is, right? Being able to bullshit when you're procrastinating and being able to still work it out
Yeah.
as a negative. And it's not really a negative. It teaches you great skill sets, but it's not necessarily something that you should find yourself doing consistently, right? And I
Right.
think you've said that you're starting to get more comfortable.
So there's a balance there, is
establishing
what I was saying. Like you have to actually, you can't be all in. Like you were asking Nate earlier, you know, and you kind of geared the question at all of us, but to Nate, it was like, if you're just a planner, no, if you are, I mean, because there are enough people, like we mentioned, like if you're just a planner and something happens, there are people that will freeze, and all your planning is for nothing. It's for shit because
So
something like what you didn't plan for happened, and now you're
Yeah.
just like, that's where that 10 event that I was talking about. It's like fire department comes in, and like, you know, Brian and I work well together because we are different to a point, and so like
Yes, you are.
but we build off each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was one of
absolutely.
those things where it's like,
Absolutely.
to your point, Jake, is like, that's the whole thing, is that, you know, that when that happened, he did well, but the event probably would have fizzled out, and he's like, this sucks, you know, tell the fire marshal that he has to tell our guests, you know, that they have to
Gets a
go
little
home.
salty.
Yeah, well, it's just, and that was a fair remark. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, like we didn't do anything wrong. Where I had the bullshit in me, where it's like, cool, what's happening? This sucks. All right, so how do I not go home right now?
For sure.
You know, and how do we not have this event fail? So it is that fine line, but I agree with what you're saying to a point where it's, you have to surround yourself with, where you are one personality type. You have to surround yourself with people that are not necessarily like-minded.
So true. I feel even more in this day and age, right? So this is we call it a liquid atmosphere where I work, right? And with it being liquid, that means that you got to fit in a lot of different vessels depending on what you're
Financially, or
doing.
are you talking about like working with employees?
I think you can kind of go across the board if
Okay.
you look at it, right?
Yeah.
So you think about it, and I appreciate that you're talking about it from a position of retail sales, right? And that falls under an umbrella a lot of times. But grocer, I mean, you got people who had to work during the height of this, right?
Yep.
You had to figure out a way to make it work. I have good friends of mine who do a lot of the deliveries to a lot of those places, like Brownberry bread and stuff like that. And it's just like the immediate flexibility that you saw from a lot of these people is admirable. It really is, because you have a lot of people who, and Nate, I was only picking on you because I'm literally diametrically opposed to you. I'm an I. I'm such a high I. Like I'm a showboater. That's just how I am. And you give me a manual to read, I will get the cliff notes. I'll find Spark Notes and I'll figure it out. Right. But it's,
Then he'll show you pictures in his office. It's like, this is when I was whitewater rafting. I don't know if you ever, you know, met Bill Gates, but I did. There's a picture. This is a picture of me and
have
Bill
you
Gates.
seen this? Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
his
it's really
signature, by
cool.
the way. It's
I
not
have his number. We
forged.
don't text that often, but you know, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. You know, just a quick pat.
Have you
right?
met Bill Gates? I don't know.
But there's value in that, right? And being able to work in a group where you guys start to feel that bleed of some of those personality levels starting to increase, it makes you a better planner.
It
It really
absolutely
does.
does.
It makes you able to procrastinate from time to time because you've already owned that time, right? And that's something that you can't just, it's hard to come out of the womb with that. it's something that you got to be in the fire a few times to be able to build that skill
It's the
set.
old nature versus nurture type of comment, right? You know, it's like one of those things. It's like, yeah, you have the nature, but then the nurture actually takes it to another level, and it's about, you know, what you are learning as you grow up, and that's where I said age, and Dustin asked, you know, it's like age or experience is like kind of the same thing, but there are times where if you are that hardwired, and there are people that are that hardwired in a certain area that they won't be able to adapt. But I think that most people are able to if they learn more about it. They learn more about and I'm glad you brought, I love the disc personality type of a conversation. I absolutely do. That's where that whole thing, and Dustin, you've been a part of this a long time. Nate, you've been a part of this a long time. Where my biggest thing is that when you have shit going on in your life, I have this type of, I guess, saying where the hand in front of your face thing, where it's always, you know, when you are a certain way, it's like when you have, and Jake, you're new to this podcast, but it's one of those things like when you have your hand in front of your face, you can't really focus on things beyond it. You can't really see what you're looking at because it's too close. And that's where you lose yourself and you lose the things that are happening. So when like a situation, you plan everything and you got everything out here, and all of a sudden shit hits the fan or whatever, and it's like all of a sudden it's in your face and you can't really look beyond the hand. You can't focus on that. You can't focus on the hand. And someone, whether it's yourself or someone else, has to physically say, hang on, move the hand away. Now you can see the hand, you can see everything else beyond it, and you can actually make decisions a little bit more with sound judgment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think with that, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you can focus and pull that hand away as much as you want to really kind of focus on the big picture, but you can never expect the unexpected no matter how much you try. Because anything can happen at the drop of a hat, and next thing you know, that hand's back in your face, and you're forced to focus on what's right in front of you. And you know, it's the same thing day in and day out at work. You know, there's always something going on where, you know, I'm lapping the store and I'm hitting every department. And I could be at the other end of the store, and the last time I was, you know, in my produce department, they were solid. You know, they're looking great. You know, it could be 30 minutes to an hour, and the next thing you know, I lap back around and they've fallen apart and Rome is burning, and I have to try to rebuild it. Because in reality for us, it's the customer's perception of when you walk in and your tables are empty, and the green rack, what we call the green rack, where all the lettuces and things are empty. You know, your first perception is, well, man, they don't have shit. This, you know,
Right.
They don't have anything to sell.
Right.
They don't have anything at all. And it's the same perception if, you know, someone from the division office or a VP comes in. And so it's just a constant battle of, you know, always trying to focus on what's going on. And you're constantly, it's a, you know, in and out
Absolutely.
of that face.
I agree completely. It's constantly adapting to it and moving that hand in
Yeah.
and out of the face.
And so it gets exhausting, to say the least.
Absolutely.
And to kind of frame around and something that I never really thought about or put anything to it. And, you know, Ben's watching right now, who's my boss and also one of my closest friends, is, you know, he came to me. I know, right? And he came to me and said, you know, I one thing I need to learn from you is how you communicate with the VPs and the people who come into the store, because you seem to have a way to talk to them that's on a different level. And I looked at him dead in the face. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I really don't. I said, I don't know. And I never really put it all together until I kind of started to look back, and it all kind of stemmed from a store leader that I worked for at a previous store. And one thing he said is, you know, you can constantly focus on the things that are going on in your store and make that perception as best as possible. But at the end of the day, you have to know what your strengths and your weaknesses are and your opportunities within the store. So if someone were to come in and they point those opportunities out, you already know about it. And
well, that was that SWOT analysis we
exactly
talked about recently,
it is that analysis, because if you know what your opportunities are, you have a plan that goes into it, and you explain that to them, they're much more understanding with it. And I never really put any of that together until he kind of put it back
So
in
Ben,
my face.
Ben says it's your BSing. So
That very well could be.
You throw
So you-
more BS than cows on Orin.
he said prunes, cows on prunes. Shit.
That very well
Oh,
could be
he's
true.
He's talking about
but
shit. You know, he's talking about cows.
it's
cow
it's
shit.
saved us sometimes, not always, but sometimes. But when there are opportunities and it gets pointed out, it's a matter of adapting and jumping on top of it and taking care of it. So, and that's, I don't know how that falls into the personalities, but that's kind of that procrastinating, because there are opportunities that we tend to walk by in the flow of everything, of things that get kind of thrown at us, and it forces us to try to slow down in our world.
So I know I put this on there, but we're about hour and a half into part 2 here. So I think we should table the celebrating anniversaries and however I put it in the description, as far as, what did I say?
Wrapping back around to the celebrating
What,
the
you
anniversary.
pulled it up. What did I say?
Oh no, I wasn't looking. I was seeing it at the time. I was like, maybe we can squeeze it in there.
I think we can put that to another episode. It was reflecting on accomplishments and celebrating milestones. I think that's another. Let's table that. I'll put it to you guys, Dustin or Nate. Closing remarks on part 2.
Go ahead, Dustin.
So
Go ahead, Dustin. Nate
I
says.
think with the whole procrastinating versus planning, you need to play to your strengths, but also recognize your weaknesses and the opportunities that you have, and try to build on those. And if
like you learned from our SWAT conversation,
I've known about SWAT, but I've never really fully
talked
utilized
about it
it
over cigars and whiskey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as much.
Utilize
It.
Translation: drank and smoked while talking about it.
It tends to fit and stick better, I guess.
Funny how that works.
It's weird, but I like it. But and focus on those opportunities to try to build upon those. So if you're a planner, when things do hit the fan, utilize that as kind of an opportunity to grow within yourself, to build that particular skill set and plan in a faster fashion. And those who are procrastinators learn around planning better and taking that time to plan. That's something that I've lost focus on myself. Is I get lost in that whirlwind, and I lose track of time, and the next thing I know, I haven't done A, B, or C that I wanted to do and or needed to do, and it's the day after that, and I'm getting emails and, hey, where's this at? Hey, did you take care of that? Hey, did you take care of this? No. It's those shit moments. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my wraparound with all of that. And in regards to anniversaries and celebrations,
No, we're tabling
milestone. We're tabling
that. Yeah.
Okay. So
But cheers to Watershed.
cheers to Watershed.
We'll bring that back up.
Bring that back up.
Yeah.
All right.
We did not dive into that tonight.
You can say that for another time.
Yeah. Nate.
So anyone who's been listening knows I'm definitely a planner.
Had no idea.
Do tell.
No idea.
I mean, so when I used to be a cigar rep, and maybe Jonathan Herring, who's been listening and been a part of the.
You said port, Nate Hill.
I did. I wanted to have enough to be able to do a cheers at the end.
Oh boy.
Maybe Jonathan can relate to this, or maybe he's a little bit different than I was. But when I was a cigar rep, like I had a rotation and a calendar of where I was going to be each week in my territory.
Sure.
Part of that was because I had such a large territory, and I tried to visit all the accounts that I could within a certain time frame. So I always had a plan of where I was going to be each week, and then kind of get into a little bit of a routine. Like, okay, on the first day I'm going to visit these shops. On the next day I'm going to visit these, and so on and so on. I did have one of my trips where I was going to be visiting some certain accounts, and the appointments that I had scheduled, they had to reschedule for the next day. So I didn't want to drive all the way to that town only to be able to visit half my accounts and then have to drive back the next day, because I felt like there was too much time wasted. I wasn't utilizing everything I could in that day all the time. So I had to kind of change it up. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that, like, before I go on a vacation, like, I lay out, like, okay, I'm going on a 5-day vacation, or let's say it was a 5-day business trip. Going on a 5-day business trip. All right, I got 5 pairs of pants laid out. I got 5 dress shirts laid out. I got 5 undershirts laid out.
You always
socks.
take more
and then I
underwear than you think you need.
Yes,
and socks.
And then I always
you can throw on a pair of shorts again. You can throw in, but underwear and socks. You gotta plan ahead.
Yeah, so I always have. I would always have an outfit planned for each day, but then I would also have backups in case I spilled something or I burned a hole in a shirt.
Sure,
something. Yeah. So I was up in Michigan.
You burn a hole in a shirt
when I was a cigar rep.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Not intentional. Sometimes
but it's happened to me.
It's happened. I've had it happen.
I had a schedule planned out. I had some meetings planned out, and one of the days on that trip, 2 of my appointments wanted to reschedule for the next day. Like, all right, that's fine. I'll go visit that town tomorrow. I'll hit everyone in that town tomorrow. What am I going to do today? All right, I know these accounts in this town. I don't have to schedule appointments. I know who's going to be there.
Yeah,
I'll just go visit those. And unfortunately, I was in Ann Arbor wearing scarlet and gray.
You plan ahead.
I didn't plan that because I walked into a shop in Ann Arbor, and the guy who owns it used to play on Michigan's football team. And he's like, "Did you seriously just wear gray and red?"
So you didn't plan well.
I adapted. I just didn't want to change my shirt.
You didn't plan well.
No, I am a planner. But as much as I do like to plan things, I know that not everything's going to go according to plan.
Right.
I don't have control over everything, but that's one of the reasons I like to plan, is because I like that sense of control over what I'm doing. I'm not trying to control others. I have control over what I'm doing on certain days or certain activities. I like
when you go on vacation. When do you pack the suitcase? So you leave Monday.
Sunday.
What time on Sunday?
In the afternoon, like that.
So you leave Monday morning. So the flight is Monday at 7 a.m. Where are you at on the packing schedule?
That suitcase is packed before dinner.
When do you do your laundry?
Friday.
Is that like every Friday?
Yes.
Like you're a planner, so I feel like you just do laundry on Fridays.
Well, so my mother-in-law comes over.
All right, let me change the scenario because you do your laundry on Fridays. So your flight is Thursday morning at 7 a.m.
He never schedules a flight on Thursday morning. There's the answer.
When are you packing? Your flight's on Thursday morning. Laundry day is Friday. You're a planner, right?
Okay.
Am I right?
Yeah, I am.
So you fly out Thursday morning at 7 a.m. When are you packing that suitcase, and when's laundry?
Laundry will be Thursday morning or Wednesday night, and I
leave Thursday morning.
I'm sorry,
Tuesday morning.
I will either be doing laundry Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. I will have that suitcase packed by Wednesday night before the podcast, and then I'll be
I like that.
And then I'll be flying out on Wednesday morning, because the company I work for, every year we go to Chicago for a mid-year party, and that mid-year is always in the middle of the week. So like I'm still in my office here in Columbus on Monday and Tuesday, and then I know I'm flying out Wednesday morning. Right. Although I prefer to just spend the entire I'd rather spend the entire week in Chicago.
So that suitcase is sitting by the front door when you wake up.
No, it's in the bedroom, but it's packed.
Yeah.
I got.
You throw your toiletries in at the end.
Yeah, I will brush my teeth. And
or do you have travel?
Yes, I do have travel toothpaste, so I will have the toothpaste in the bag. But then I also have a travel toothbrush I have travel deodorant, all that.
Why are travel
Everything's
toothbrushes
everything's
shorter?
backfiring on you.
No,
That's
it's a
what
regular
I
size
want to know.
toothbrush.
Why can't? Oh, you have a regular,
It's full size toothbrush.
not your normal toothbrush though.
Correct.
It's like the dentist one that they
It's-
give you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I mean,
I'm just for
I'd like to plan because it gives me some sense of control.
I 100% agree.
Subject for next
but-
week. How do you pack?
Everyone's like commenting on the feed like when they're gonna pack on this. I love it. When I went
And my
to
wife
Cuba,
goes, my wife goes, he gets the general idea throughout the weekend on what he's packing.
So it's-
like,
so
yes,
it's-
I do the same thing.
I-
do you create a spreadsheet?
no,
Okay, good.
no.
When I went to Cuba, we had a podcast that night with Nook. I
Yes,
think
you
it
did.
was.
Oh Jesus!
I was hammered drunk.
As was Nook
Nook, yeah, we had to take him back to his hotel,
couldn't
but
find his keys.
for half an hour,
yeah,
and they
I
were
showed
in
up
his
at the
pocket.
airport, and I remember Mark. He's like, "How drunk are you?" I was like, "I'm pretty drunk today." In the morning, I had a great flight. Jonathan Aaron says, "Longest final thoughts ever." I tell
No,
you.
he wasn't here back in the days when Brad used to come to the garage.
Yeah.
And
When
actually,
Brad used to actually
timed
have the
Steve.
timer.
No, not it wasn't me. It was actually other people at the end of it.
Yeah, he
I-
timed you.
I
But-
want to throw. Oh, go ahead.
But what I was going to say, so as much as I'd like to plan,
Yeah.
I do know that sometimes things are going to happen that are outside of my control. And even though I'm the kind of person, thanks Jake for bringing it up.
High C.
Even though I am
Welcome
the kind
to
of
the
person,
neighborhood.
Seriously, need to get him on.
It'll happen.
I am the kind of person that will get frustrated when a curveball gets thrown my way. I still have the ability to adapt and hit it because whether it's a fastball or a curveball, it's still a pitch.
Oh, love the baseball metaphor.
It's like it's still going to be a strike. I still got to protect the plate. I still got to take a shot at it.
You swing away, you foul it off.
I stay alive.
Foul it off.
If it's close to the strike zone, like on the outside part of the plate, foul it off. But if it's curveball and it's going to break into the middle of the zone,
Yeah.
just fucking crush it as best you can.
Swing away.
I mean, that especially that hanging curve.
All
It's-
right. This is
I mean, yeah.
now you're just talking about baseball. Like, it's not a metaphor anymore. You're literally just
No, it
talking
still
about
is.
baseball.
But no, you,
Steal home.
as much of a planner as you can consider yourself, you still have to accept that not everything's under your control. You
Yeah.
still have to have some sort of ability to adapt if things don't go your way.
Yeah.
So that example I brought up earlier after Jake asked his first question, it's like, yes, if I was in complete control of that situation, I'd have had all of the information I needed a month before I needed it. Unfortunately, I was not the person in control of that. But when all of a sudden at 5:15 on a Wednesday night, I get told to do something different, great. I got the rest of that night and the next day to figure shit out.
Right.
And I better bust my ass and do the best I can in order to make that deadline.
Yeah.
I can't just sit there and be like, you know what? I gave you guys a month and a half to get that to me. No, I'm not going to do it. It's like, no, if you want to keep your job, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can plan as much as you want, but you
Can never expect the unexpected.
may not be procrastinating, but all of a sudden, some of the attributes that we attribute to procrastinators are going to kick in. And at that
Yeah.
point, it's not necessarily, it's more survival than anything. It's like, I need to get by. I need to do what I can with what I got in the time frame I got it.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and knock it out of the park. Do the best you can.
So Ray, I'll do my closing remarks, and I'll kind of frame it around Ray Cheshire, who's watching. He's still commenting. He says, during this conversation, says, is routine the same as planning, or is routine just complacency?
That was in response to Ben's comment.
Yeah, but I think that honestly, that's my struggle. That's a lot of people's struggle. Is the people that are procrastinators, when they say like Jonathan earlier said something like he strives under pressure. And that was the way I framed it was like, under pressure. Are you a procrastinator? Are you a planner? Somewhere in between. This is what I think really trips people up, and it trips me up a lot, is that with the routine, the complacency aspect of it really, really trips people up a lot of times. Planners, they're okay with it because that's the comfort zone. The people that are pure procrastinators, they hate routine a lot of times, in my opinion. I think they do not like it because it is boring. When you are constantly just reacting, there's no planning. You're just reacting, and this is your personality. This is how you live your life. You're constantly reacting, and that's a dangerous thing, because if you're just waiting for something to get thrown in your face. And on the flip side of that, we talked about the planning, and when shit hits a fan, when you're a procrastinator and everything's going smoothly, you have the opposite side of that, in my opinion. I'm of the opinion that when the person that is constantly bullshitting are able to just react on their feet and things are going smoothly, they don't have that stimulus that will push them to get under pressure. You can plan late, you can not think about it, you can push it off, you can do all this stuff, but when it gets down to it, when it's boring and routine and you can just do it, like show up to work on time, it's boring. You're going to be late because you weren't under the gun. You didn't have that adrenaline rush that I think procrastinators have. So my whole thing is as always with what we talk about on this podcast, for me, it's, and Jonathan, as I said, routine is my biggest fear, he says. That's the big thing, is that people that react to the adrenaline, they only know how to respond to that. So when things are mundane or routine, that's where the failure is, and that's the weakness. That's where you have to walk the line between procrastinating and planning. You can plan. You have to be prepared for the unknown, which you can say it as a planner all you want, that I'm ready for it, I'm thinking about it. That's where I went back to that IT conversation. It's like, well, yeah, you keep asking that, but it's not going to happen because I have fail safe. And I'm like, yeah, the third one, what if that fails? And that's where the thought process leaves and the critical thinking stops. So you have to be able to react on your feet. I'm not encouraging procrastination. It is a weakness of mine that to a point I can adapt and do really well with it. But what and I encourage everyone to try to learn from people that are, if you're a procrastinator, find a planner and at least talk to them and try to kind of dig through their mind on how they operate, because it is different than you. And try to take out of 100 things, try to take 5. You know what I mean? Like let's grow financially, especially. I think in today's world, that's a big part of it, is that we are in a society now, especially in America, that it's all about credit. And that's, I think, something that, and Nate's, for those listening and not watching, he's shaking his head because a full-blown planner won't do that. And that's where you are. I can take my car in and get my engine rebuilt or exchanged, or swapped out, and I can literally write you a check. I don't know the percentages, but I'd put money on the fact I'd write a check that I don't have, that most people don't have checkbooks at this point. That's where we're at. You have a debit card, maybe, but other than that, there's another vast majority of people that are literally like, I'll put on my credit card and then I'll put payments towards it. That's the planning ideology in today's world, and I think that's where you lose yourself one way or the other. I think that's where it is. It's all about the balance, and that's my big thing. Is that my big thing for me is that I am constantly striving to, when I'm very invested and interested. I brought it up. It's very trivial to most people out there. When I'm buying a TV, that's one of those things that there are a lot of people that high eye, like Jake was talking about, if you're a high influence, you're just like, I'll just buy whatever TV I walk in the store and it looks good to me. That's a pure high eye.
How much research did you do on TVs?
I looked at TVs for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but I still have I still have my morals that, you know, my brother on the other hand is a really high C. So when I said, he's like, what TV you're getting? I was like, I'm getting a Sony. He's like, you and your brand names. I'm like, well, here's my thing. And it was like, I did my research and I was like, and I actually, so very different than my normal personality. But when I'm spending my money on something, when I hold on to something for 15 years, I sent him links. Like, you know, I was like, yeah, but it got a high rating on this website. He's like, yeah, I know that website. I was like, I know you do. Now I have to like prove myself to you that the reason I'm paying, you know, this amount of money instead of like this amount of money for an off-brand TV is because I don't want this thing to crap out. And then there's the other things in life where, like an event I planned for, other times like the podcast, which we're having great fun on, and there's a lot of people getting something out of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's important. We have a bottle of whiskey, we have the cigars, we normally have guests, and then it's like now the topic, which used to be like the biggest thing for me, now it's just like kind of we'll figure it out based on the guests. It's funny when I'm talking to Nate and Dustin, it's like, who's the guest tonight? I was like, well, you guys are. So, oh. And then literally again, 5 minutes before the podcast, because there is something where there is something, I guess, organic to this, I put the trust in the process, which is what procrastinators say.
But sometimes you and I
that's what procrastinators say.
But sometimes you
gotta
and I
trust the process. Like, so you have no plan. Like, that's it. That's how this works.
But there have been times where you know, on Tuesday nights when you and I are working together, like we will have conversations like, all right, what are we drinking? Okay. I'll ask you, like, all right, what do you want to smoke tomorrow? You know, do you have a topic planned out?
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes we'll sit there and brainstorm. We'll talk about what to talk about.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, because
I think that's
what I've noticed from you when it comes to the topics is we may have ideas,
yeah,
but there's a certain phrasing sometimes that you want to phrase things
it's
a
a late
certain
hour.
way. And you're just waiting for that iron to strike, that creative engine in your head to strike and be like, you know what? I think this would be a good topic, and here's a good way to frame it. But that doesn't necessarily happen a day or two ahead of time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, you know, the day of the podcast when you're at work and suddenly it just pops in your head.
Well, Jonathan says we should do our final thoughts, and I appreciate that he's drinking a lot of bourbon tonight. So, yeah, once again, my final thoughts is balance. I know it's a broken record for me, but I try to surround myself with people that have different mindsets so that I can learn from them. You know, Dustin said earlier that, you know, in his job, the people that he surrounds himself with at the level that he's at are very like-minded or like in personality. That will get you so far. And I think there will be a time, and with Ben, who you said is your boss and good friend, he, I think, looks at it a little differently, because when you see it like that, then all of a sudden he looks at it as like, yeah, but you do something that I can't do. And that's talk to customers, and he calls it BSing. But I think that's the level of there's a way to approach people, and that's where it comes down to it. It's like when there's other people involved, that's where planning is more important. When it's just you live and die by your decisions. When you live and die by your decisions, there's other people involved. You're bringing them up or down with you, and they have no real impact on their success or failure. And that's where you have that little bit of a hybrid where you take into effect that they are different types of people. Mm-hmm. And there's more than just you. And I think that's where I've adapted to a point in my age and experience. And I hope to continue to get better at that. When you talk about, and Dustin, you brought up the SWOT part of it, is you constantly reevaluate yourself and you try to learn about yourself so that you can get better at certain things, and the things that you're good at, you can appreciate. And for me, that's why you guys are on this podcast. That's why people are in the garage. That's why people listen, is because you may or may not know that you're learning something sometimes, but if you're listening, you're enjoying it. And that's where I said, like, I when I care about something, I put more in, I put more planning, which is against my normal, like just go with whatever. That's where I realized that the planning part is super important because I care about the people that I'm involving in these decisions. And sometimes it's very foreign to me. Guys, I want to cheers you. Thank you to our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, Altadis USA, BS Cigar Company, and patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. You guys are amazing. And
Yes.
I hope you guys continue to share this. This was a fun podcast. You guys, thank you very much. Thanks to the audience. Thanks to the audience.
Watershed.
Thanks
Keep
to
the conversation
Watershed.
going too.
Yeah, on the
There's a
Bourbon
lot
BS
of great
community
conversation
page.
in the comments.
Yeah, Watershed. Thank you, Nate. Watershed Distillery, 10-year anniversary bottle, 6-year aged apple brandy barrels at the end. Completely unique bottle. If you guys can
So
grab
good.
it, I got to take this bottle off the table before we start dipping it. No, Dustin, don't touch it. This was a great gift. So, Ann, I know you were on, and Greg, thanks for the videos. I hope you guys were able to listen to it. And guys, cheers. Happy
Cheers.
Whiskey Wednesday. We'll see you next week. We got some great guests coming up. Looking forward to it.
Cheers.